The iron tang of blood fills Jang Do-yoon's mouth as he hits the canvas. He's 19 years old, and he's just been thrown into a pit. Not a metaphor, a literal pit, ringed by screaming men in cheap suits. His ribs scream louder than the crowd. A week ago, he was a nobody debt runner in the back alleys of Seoul. Then he reached out and stole 3 seconds from a loan shark's enforcer. Guy aged 10 years and dropped. Since that night, Do-yoon's name has been whispered in the underground. A kid who can touch you and leave you old. The whispers reached the wrong ears. Now a man in a gold ring runs this pit, and he wants to see the time thief bleed for his entertainment. Do-yoon pushes himself up on shaking arms. His knuckles are already split. They took his shoes. The concrete under the canvas is cold, even through the mat. The man with the gold ring sits on a folding chair, a bottle of soju in his fist. He doesn't speak. He just nods. A metal gate across the pit screeches open. The brute who walks out is built like a refrigerator. Tattoos crawl up his neck and disappear into a shaved skull. He's got a pipe in one hand and a grudge in his eyes. Do-yoon knows the type. A lifer who hurts people for rent money. The crowd roars the brute's name, something like Gang Chol. Gang Chol pounds the pipe against the cage wall. The clang rings in Do-yoon's teeth. He staggers to his feet. No weapon, no plan, just the cold knot in his gut and the 1 year of life he has left. The pit boss told him before they threw him in. Survive 10 minutes and the debt is cleared. He didn't mention the pipe. Gang Chol charges. He's faster than he looks. The pipe comes down in a diagonal slash that would cave in a skull. Do-yoon throws himself sideways. The pipe misses by a breath and smashes into the canvas, tearing a gash in the mat. Sawdust puffs out. Do-yoon scrambles backward on his heels and palms. Gang Chol is already swinging again. The second strike catches Do-yoon's shoulder. It's not a clean hit or the bone would be dust, but it's enough. Something tears in his rotator cuff. His right arm goes numb from the elbow up. The crowd howls. Gold Ring takes a lazy sip from his bottle. Do-yoon is on his back now, staring at the bare bulb swinging overhead. Pipe rises for the finisher. Gang Chol is breathing hard, sweat flying off his skull. His guard is open. He's already celebrating. Do-yoon's left hand shoots up. It's not a punch. His fingers wrap around Gang Chol's forearm, slick with sweat. Instinct takes over. The same instinct that woke up in a street fight when he was 16. A boy bleeding in an alley, a thug's knife at his throat, and a desperate grab that aged his attacker 6 years. He's used the power enough times since then to know the feeling. It's like pulling a thread from a sweater, except the thread is time, and the sweater is a person. Gang Chol's roar cuts off mid-breath. A shiver passes through the big man's arm into Do-yoon's palm. The years start to flow. Do-yoon watches it happen. It always shows first in the eyes. Gang Chol's pupils contract to pinpricks, then dilate wide. The skin around them creases, then cracks, then folds. Not metaphor. The man is aging in real time, seconds ticking away visibly. His buzz-cut hair loses its dark sheen and goes the gray of wet ash. The tattoos on his neck sag as the muscle underneath loses its mass. Do-yoon feels every stolen second arrive in his own body. It's cold, like an ice cube sliding down his spine and settling somewhere deep behind his chest. His heartbeat explodes. There was a single, tired thud. Now there are 3 in the same instant. The world goes syrup slow around him. Gang Chol's pipe is still coming down, but it's a distant, frozen threat. The crowd's bellow stretches into a low, meaningless moan. A single bead of sweat hangs in the air between them. Do-yoon watches his own hand. The skin on his knuckles tightens, then loosens, then tightens again. A faint silver gleam appears at his temples. He's aging too. Not much. A few months maybe, but every theft leaves its mark. He's seen it in mirrors. 19 years old with the beginnings of crow's feet, 19 with a dusting of gray. He rose from the alley that first night with a lock of white hair and an understanding that nothing in his life would be simple again. For one stretched, perfect second, he is the fastest thing in the room. He uses it. His left foot plants against the canvas. His right leg coils and releases. He doesn't throw a punch. Gang Chol's arm is still in his grip, the theft still churning. Instead, he flows. He pulls himself up and past the descending pipe, twisting Gang Chol's captured arm as he goes. The big man's elbow locks out. In normal time, the joint would have held. But Gang Chol's body isn't in normal time, it's in the thief's time. His muscles are confused, his nerves firing decades out of sync. The arm bends wrong. There is a wet, ugly snap. Gang Chol's howl finally catches up to the moment. Do-yoon rides the stolen second to its end. He's behind the brute now, Left hand still clamped on the arm, right shoulder screaming protests he can't feel. He drives his knee into the back of Gang Do-yoon's leg. The big man buckles. Do-yoon releases the arm and brings his elbow down on the base of the skull. It's not a clean technique. It's a desperate, ugly street fight finish. But with the stolen time still burning in his veins, his elbow moves like a piston. Gang Do-yoon's face hits the canvas. The pipe clatters free and rolls into the sawdust. He doesn't get up. The world snaps back to full speed. The crowd's roar hits Do-yoon like a physical wave. He's standing over the unconscious fighter, gasping. His right arm dangles uselessly. His left hand is still curled into a claw from the grip on Gang Do-yoon's arm. He looks at the big man on the ground. Gang Do-yoon breathes in shallow hitches, his face slack. Gray stubble now covers his head and jaw. He looks 30 years older. He looks like he's dying. Do-yoon's stomach knots. He knows the face. He's seen it before. On the Enforcer a week ago. On the shadowy figures in the alleys. The theft always works the same. A few hours ripped away with a touch, and each time it leaves a tiny crack somewhere in him. A sense that he's trading pieces of himself for moments of speed. The cold in his spine hasn't faded. It pulses. He wrenches his gaze away from Gang Do-yoon and looks at his own left hand. It's trembling. Not from fear, from the current of stolen time still buzzing under his skin. Looking for somewhere to go. He can feel it. 8 hours of a man's life, now sitting in his cells, waiting to be burned. The crowd is going insane. Fists pound the cage. Money changes hands in crumpled bills. The man with the gold ring sets down his bottle. His expression hasn't changed, but a single finger taps against his knee. He's calculating. Do-yoon sees the look. He knows what it means. The pit boss just realized his new acquisition is worth more than the debt. The sight jolts him into action. He can't be here when the next gate opens. He turns and runs. The cage door is 20 feet away. He crosses it in what feels like a blink, his legs still running on stolen fuel. The guard at the gate tries to grab him. Do-yoon ducks under the arm and keeps moving. He's in a concrete corridor now, bare bulbs spaced every 30 feet. Water drips somewhere. Shouts echo behind him. Gold Ring's men, scrambling. Do-yoon's right arm hangs dead at his side. His left hand he clutches to his chest. He runs. He runs until the concrete gives way to rusted metal stairs. He climbs them 2 at a time, his lungs burning. His shoulder a white-hot spike with every step. The stairs end in a heavy steel door. He slams his good shoulder into it. It swings open onto an alley. Rain. Cold December rain that slicks the asphalt and cuts the stench of garbage. Do-yoon staggers out and lets the door clang shut behind him. The alley is narrow, wedged between a laundromat and a boarded-up PC bank. He presses his back against the wet brick and slides down until he's sitting. The concrete is freezing. He can't feel it. He's still clutching his left hand to his chest like it's holding a live grenade. He looks at it. It looks normal. Young skin, calloused knuckles, a few fresh scrapes from the canvas. But it's still buzzing with the stolen decade. He can feel the unspent speed coiled in his palm, waiting. It feels like holding his finger over a live wire and daring himself to touch. He closes his eyes and lets the rain hit his face. His breathing slows. The cold in his spine begins to recede. The stolen time settling into his system. He's got maybe 11 months left now, 12 if he's lucky. He opens his eyes and stares at the neon reflection shimmering in a puddle. Gold Ring's men will be in the alley any minute. He needs to move. First, he needs to understand what his hand just did, and why it feels like the next time he uses it. It might take something he can't afford to lose. A shadow shifts at the mouth of the alley. Not a guard, too still, too patient. A figure in a long coat, collar turned up against the rain. He's been watching, and he's not surprised. The shadow doesn't move. Rain slicks off the collar of a long black coat, and the man inside it just stands there, hands in his pockets, watching Do-yoon like he's been waiting all night. Do-yoon's left hand is still clenched against his chest, the stolen hours buzzing under his skin like a live current. He can feel it in his teeth. The man takes one step forward. Do-yoon scrambles up, his right arm hanging dead, his back still pressed to wet brick. The man stops at the edge of a puddle, and the neon from the laundromat sign catches his face. Old. Not Gang Do-yoon old, not suddenly aged old, just old in the way time actually works. Gray hair slicked back, deep lines around the eyes, the kind of face that's seen decades pass and didn't flinch at any of them. He looks at Do-yoon's clenched fist. Then he looks at Do-yoon's face, and he smiles. It's not a threat. It's recognition. The man speaks, and his voice is calm and low, the kind of voice that doesn't need to shout. He says his name is Hyo Seok-jun. He says he felt the theft happen from 3 blocks away. He says it felt like a stone dropped into still water. Do-yoon's heart slams against his ribs. He asks how the old man knows about the theft. He asks who sent him. He asks if he's with Goldring. Hyo shakes his head, slow and patient. He says Goldring doesn't know what he's holding. He says Goldring sees a fighter, a debt runner, maybe a pit dog with a lucky punch. He says Goldring doesn't understand what just happened in that cage. But Hyo does. Hyo takes his hands out of his pockets and shows Do-yoon his palms. Empty, clean. No weapon, no trick, nothing but old skin and calluses. He says he's not here to fight. He says he gave up fighting a long time ago. Do-yoon doesn't relax. His left hand is still buzzing. He can feel the stolen years coiled in his palm like they want to be used, like they want to burn. Hyo watches that hand. He says that feeling never goes away. He says the stolen time always wants to be spent. He says that's the first thing Do-yoon needs to understand. Do-yoon asks what the second thing is. Hyo tilts his head toward the end of the alley. He says the second thing is that Goldring's men are 2 blocks away and closing. He says Do-yoon can stay here and fight them, or he can follow. He turns and walks, doesn't look back, doesn't wait, just walks into the rain like he already knows Do-yoon will follow. And Do-yoon does. Because his right arm is dead, his left hand is a live grenade, and the only person in this city who seems to know what is happening to him just offered him an exit. They move through back streets, Hyo leading with the quiet confidence of someone who's walked these routes 1,000 times. Do-yoon follows, clutching his left hand to his chest, the buzz slowly fading as the stolen time settles deeper into his cell. His shoulder screams every time he jostles it. He ignores it. 20 minutes of walking, rain soaking through his clothes, and they stop in front of a building squeezed between a defunct noodle shop and a warehouse. No sign. No door number. Just a heavy wooden door with iron hinges that look older than the city. Hyo pushes it open and steps inside. Do-yoon follows. The room is a dojo. Not a modern gym, a real dojo, with a wooden floor worn smooth by decades of feet, a single low table in the corner, and a scroll on the far wall with calligraphy so old the ink is cracked. No lights except a bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. No heat. But it's dry. Hyo gestures at the floor and says to sit. Do-yoon sits. His legs give out more than he'd like to admit. The adrenaline is gone, and what's left is exhaustion, pain, and a cold that has nothing to do with the rain. Hyo kneels across from him, the low table between them. He pours tea from a thermos into 2 chipped ceramic cups. He pushes one toward Do-yoon. Do-yoon doesn't touch it. He's still holding his left hand like it might bite him. Hyo takes a sip of his own tea, and he raises his hands again, palms out, and holds them there. He asks Do-yoon if he can feel it. Do-yoon narrows his eyes. He asks what he's supposed to feel. Hyo says nothing. He says that's the point. His hands are empty. No stolen time, no buzzing current, no coiled speed waiting to be spent. He says he gave it up. Do-yoon stares at him. He asks how you give up a power like this. Hyo lowers his hands and wraps them around his teacup. He says it's simple. You stop stealing. He says he was like Do-yoon once. Young, desperate, cornered in a fight he couldn't win, and his hand found someone's arm. And suddenly the other guy was old and he was fast. He says the first time felt like a miracle. He says it always does. He says the second time felt like winning. The third time felt like breathing. And by the 10th time, he couldn't remember what it felt like to move at normal speed. Hyo's voice doesn't change. Flat, calm, like he's reciting a grocery list. But Do-yoon sees his hands tighten around the cup. Hyo says the power has a rule. One rule. The most important rule. You can only steal from someone once. Do-yoon's stomach drops. He thinks back to the pit, Gang Chol's arm in his grip, the years flowing, the world going syrup slow. He asks what happens if you try to steal from the same person twice. Hyo looks at him. He says, nothing happens. The target is immune. That's the rule. But it gets worse. He says the real trap isn't the rule, it's the addiction. Because once you steal from someone, they're useless to you. So you look for someone new. And someone new. He says you start telling yourself you're only taking from people who deserve it. Fighters, thugs, enemies. But the list of acceptable targets keeps getting shorter. And the hunger keeps getting louder. Hyo sets his cup down. He says the power isn't a weapon. It's a loan shark. It gives you years now and charges you everything later. Do-yoon looks at his left hand. The buzz has faded to a faint tingle. But he can still feel the weight of those 10 years in his cells. He asks Heo how he stopped. Heo doesn't answer right away. He stares at the scroll on the far wall, the cracked calligraphy, the single character that Do-yoon can't read. Then he says he found someone who taught him that speed isn't about taking. It's about spending what you already have. He says it took him 30 years to learn that lesson. He says he's hoping Do-yoon learns it faster. Do-yoon's jaw tightens. He asks what happens if he doesn't. Heo meets his eyes. He says Do-yoon already knows the answer. He says he can see it in the strain at Do-yoon's temples. He says every theft costs only the time you take. Not a currency you can track. Not a meter you can watch tick down. But a weight that settles into your bones and doesn't leave. He says the cracks get wider every time. Do-yoon thinks about the cold in his spine. The way it pulsed after he dropped Gangchul. The way it hasn't quite faded. He asks Heo how long he has. Heo says he can't know for sure. But if Do-yoon keeps stealing at this rate, keeps burning decades in pit fights, keeps treating the power like a weapon instead of a curse, he says maybe a year, maybe less. Do-yoon's throat tightens. 11 months. 12 if he's lucky. That's what he thought in the alley. And hearing it from someone who knows, someone who's walked this road, makes it feel real in a way it didn't before. He asks Heo how to get stronger. Because if he's got a year left, he's not spending it running from Gold Ring. He's not spending it hiding in a rain-soaked dojo drinking tea. He's going to become the fastest fighter alive. He says it out loud. Heo doesn't laugh. He doesn't tell him it's impossible. He just nods, slow, like he was expecting the question. He says strength isn't the problem. He says Do-yoon already has strength. The stolen years prove that. The problem is control. He says Do-yoon used 10 years to drop one brute in a cage. 10 years for a single fight. 10 years for 30 seconds of speed. He says that's wasteful. He says that's dangerous. If Do-yoon wants to survive, he needs to learn how to spend a second like it's a decade, not the other way around. Do-yoon asks how he does that. Heo stands and walks to the center of the dojo. He gestures for Do-yoon to join him. Do-yoon pushes himself up, his right arm still dangling, his left hand finally unclenching. He stands across from the old man on the worn wooden floor. Heo says the first lesson is simple. Practice using what you already have, not taking more. Not burning stolen years in a panic. Just moving. He says the power makes you fast, but it doesn't teach you how to be fast. He says that part you have to earn. Do-yoon asks if this is where the training montage starts. Heo almost smiles. He says it starts tomorrow. Tonight, Do-yoon needs to sleep. He needs to let the stolen time settle. He needs to stop clutching his hand like it's a bomb. Do-yoon looks at his left palm. The buzz is almost gone now. The years absorbed into his system, his cells humming with a low, quiet energy that wasn't there before the pit. He flexes his fingers. They move. No pain, no tremor, just his own hand doing what hands do. He looks up at Heo. He asks why the old man is helping him. Heo walks back to the table and picks up his tea. He says because someone helped him once. And because the world doesn't need another time thief burning through stolen decades in a basement cage. He says if Do-yoon is going to carry this power, he should at least understand what it costs and what it can't buy. Do-yoon stands in the center of the dojo, the bare bulb swinging slightly overhead, his reflection a dim smear on the polished wood. He thinks about Gangchul's face, gray and slack on the canvas. He thinks about the cold in his spine. He thinks about 11 months. He asks Heo what happens if he fails. He says failure isn't the worst outcome. The worst outcome is succeeding and not recognizing the person you've become. He says the stolen years don't just age your enemies. They age you. Not your body, your soul. Every time you rip time from someone, you lose a piece of your own ability to feel it. And one day you wake up and realize you're moving faster than everyone around you. But you can't remember what it felt like to stand still. That's what happened to Heo. That's why he gave it up. Do-yoon looks at the old man's hands. Empty. Still. Calloused from work, but not from fighting. He asks if Heo misses it. Heo doesn't answer. He just looks at the scroll on the far wall, the single character, the cracked ink. Then he says it's late. He says there's a cot in the back room. He says Do-yoon should rest. He says tomorrow they start. Do-yoon doesn't move. He asks what they're starting. Heo turns to face him, and for the first time there's something sharp in his eyes. Not malice, not threat, but something harder than patience. He says they're starting the part that matters. Not stealing, not running, not burning years in a cage for a man with a gold ring. They're starting the work of making Do-yoon fast without the theft, because the theft is a crutch, and crutches break. Do-yoon holds the old man's gaze. The rain drums on the roof. The bare bulb swings. And somewhere in the distance, a siren wails. But in here, In the silence of the dojo, something has shifted. Do-yoon has a teacher now. He has a year, maybe less. And he has a choice he's never had before. Hyo turns and walks toward a door at the back of the dojo. He pauses with one hand on the frame. He doesn't look back. He just says one more thing. The gift of a second. That's the real power, not the theft, not the speed. A single second, used perfectly, is worth more than a decade stolen in desperation. He says Do-yoon should think about that before he sleeps. Then he's gone. The door slides shut behind him with a soft click. And Do-yoon is alone in the dojo. He stands there for a long time. The neon from the noodle shop next door flickers through a high window, painting blue stripes across the floor. His right arm hangs useless. His left hand is finally still. He walks to the back room. It's small. A cot, a blanket, a single shelf with a few books he can't read. He sits on the cot. He doesn't lie down. He just stares at his left hand in the blue neon glow. 11 months. A teacher who gave up his power and still ended up alone in a hidden dojo, drinking cold tea and waiting for a student who might never come. And somewhere outside, Goldring's men are still searching. But they won't find him tonight. Because for the first time since he fell into the pit, Do-yoon isn't running. He's exactly where he needs to be. He lies back on the cot. The ceiling is cracked plaster, water-stained and old. He closes his eyes. And he tries to remember what it felt like to stand still. Morning comes cold through the high window. Do-yoon is already awake. He's been awake for an hour, staring at the cracked plaster, counting the water stains like they're a map. The cot creaks when he sits up. His right arm is still dead weight, a slab of meat hanging from a busted socket. But his left hand is steady now. The stolen 24 hours settled into his bones like they've always been there. He flexes his fingers. No buzz. No tremor. Just his hand, faster than it was yesterday, ready for whatever comes next. Hyo is already in the main room when Do-yoon slides the door open. The old man sits cross-legged on the polished wood, a single sheet of paper in front of him. On the paper is an address, a warehouse in the industrial district, 3 miles from here. Hyo doesn't look up. He says the man who runs that warehouse calls himself the fastest fighter in the underground. His name is Yoon Myung-soo. He's killed 11 men in sanctioned duels, all of them faster than him on paper. All of them dead before they hit the ground. Do-yoon asks if this is the first lesson. Hyo says it's not a lesson, it's a test. He says Do-yoon has been carrying stolen speed for a week, and already his walk has changed. His shoulders are looser. His breathing is slower. His eyes track movement half a beat before it happens. Hyo says that's the theft talking, not skill. He says a real fighter doesn't borrow his speed. He owns it. Do-yoon looks at the address. He asks what happens if he loses. Hyo says Yoon doesn't take prisoners. Then he stands up, folds the paper into Do-yoon's good hand, and walks toward the back room. He pauses at the door. He says one thing before he goes. He says don't steal until you have to. He says make him show you everything first. Learn what raw speed looks like without the crutch. Then the door clicks shut. Do-yoon looks down at the paper, the ink bleeding slightly at the edges from the rain last night. 3 miles. A warehouse. A man who's killed 11 fighters faster than him. Do-yoon tucks the paper into his pocket and walks out into the gray morning light. Industrial district smells like rust and diesel and old fish. Do-yoon walks past shuttered factories and chain-link fences with signs that say, "Keep out," in faded red letters. The warehouse is at the end of a dead-end street, a hulking metal box with no windows and one sliding steel door. It's open. Just a crack. Just enough for a man to slip through. Do-yoon steps inside. The air is cold and still. The ceiling is 40 feet high, crisscrossed with rusted beams and dead fluorescent tubes. Concrete floor, stained black in places he doesn't want to think about. And in the center of all that empty space, one man. Yoon Myung-soo. He's smaller than Do-yoon expected. Lean and wiry, late 20s maybe, with a shaved head and a spiderweb scar across his left cheek. He's bouncing on the balls of his feet, light and loose, like a boxer waiting for the bell. He grins when he sees Do-yoon's dead arm. He asks if this is a joke. Do-yoon says he's here to fight. Yoon laughs, a sharp, dry sound that echoes off the metal walls. He says the last guy who walked in here with one working arm left in a bucket. He says Do-yoon should turn around and save himself the hospital bill. Do-yoon doesn't move. He plants his feet. He raises his left hand. And Yoon stops laughing. Something shifts behind his eyes. A cold, professional assessment replacing the mockery. He says, fine. He says, don't say he didn't warn him. Then he moves. And he is fast. Not supernatural fast, not time thief fast, but trained fast. The kind of speed that comes from 10,000 hours of repetition until the body reacts before the brain. Yoon crosses 20 feet in less than a second and throws a jab that Do-yoon barely sees. The fist clips his jaw, snapping his head sideways. Do-yoon staggers. Yoon is already behind him. A kick to the back of the knee sends Do-yoon to the concrete, his dead arm flopping useless, his left hand barely catching his fall. Yoon circles him, still bouncing, still grinning. He says Do-yoon's reflexes are garbage. He says whoever sent him here wants him dead. Do-yoon pushes himself up, his jaw throbs. His knee screams, but his eyes are tracking now, locked onto Yoon's center of mass, watching the rhythm of his footwork. He sees it, a tell, a tiny hitch before every strike, a quarter-second shift of weight to the back foot. Yoon comes again, a flurry of punches aimed at Do-yoon's ribs. Do-yoon dodges the first. The second catches his shoulder. The third hits nothing but air. Do-yoon is already moving sideways, his stolen speed bleeding through just enough to keep him alive. But it's not enough to win. He's burning through Gangchol's years in panicked bursts, wasteful and desperate, exactly the way Hyo told him not to. Yoon keeps pressing, a relentless assault of fists and feet and elbows. Every strike calibrated to hurt, to break, to end this fast. Do-yoon is running out of room. His back hits a steel support pillar, cold metal against his spine. Yoon grins wide and throws a straight right at Do-yoon's face. And that's when Do-yoon's left hand snaps up and grabs Yoon's wrist. The contact is electric. Do-yoon feels the connection lock into place, that invisible tether reaching out from his palm into Yoon's lifeline. And he pulls. Time doesn't flow this time. It rips. A decade tears out of Yoon Myung-soo in a single violent rush, a tidal wave of stolen seconds crashing into Do-yoon's system. The world goes syrup slow. Yoon's fist freezes an inch from Do-yoon's nose. His eyes are wide, not with fear. Not yet, but with confusion. He doesn't understand what's happening to him. He doesn't understand why his arm won't move, why his legs feel heavy, why his heart is suddenly pounding slow and thick in his chest. But Do-yoon understands. He sees the years writing themselves across Yoon's body. The shaved head sprouts gray stubble, then white. The spiderweb scar deepens, the skin around it creasing into wrinkles that weren't there a second ago. Yoon's cheeks hollow. His shoulders slump. His breath comes in a dry wheeze. He's aging 30 years in the space of a heartbeat, and he feels every single one of them. Do-yoon lets go. Yoon collapses. He hits the concrete on his hands and knees, gasping, his body a ruin of sagging skin and brittle bones. He looks up at Do-yoon with ancient eyes, and there's no hatred in them, just a terrible, hollow confusion. He asks what Do-yoon did to him. His voice is thin and cracked, an old man's voice coming out of a face that was 28 a moment ago. Do-yoon looks down at him. He feels the stolen decade humming in his chest, bright and sharp and hungry. His right arm is still dead. His knee still throbs. His left hand is faster than ever, faster than anything in this warehouse, faster than Yoon ever was. He doesn't answer the question. He just turns and walks toward the steel door. Behind him, Yoon Myung-soo stays on his knees on the stained concrete, his gray head bowed, his breathing shallow. He's alive. Do-yoon made sure of that. He didn't take enough to kill, just enough to win. Just enough to prove he could. The morning light hits Do-yoon's face as he steps outside. The industrial district is quiet, empty. The same rust and diesel and dead-end streets. But something is different. Do-yoon feels it in his step, a new weight in his bones, a new cold settling into his spine. He's won. He's faster now than he was an hour ago, faster than he's ever been. And somewhere behind his ribs, a small, quiet voice whispers that he could get faster still. All he has to do is find another target, another Yoon, another Gangchol, another 10 years, another 20, another 100. He stops walking. He stands in the middle of the dead-end street with his left hand clenched at his side and his right arm hanging useless. And he thinks about what Hyo said. The stolen years don't just age your enemies. They age you, not your body, your soul. And for the first time since the pit, Do-yoon wonders if he's already paid more than he knows. The dojo is quiet when he returns. Hyo is sitting at the low table, a fresh pot of tea steaming between his hands. He doesn't ask if Do-yoon won. He just looks at his face, at the new cold in his eyes, at the way his left hand still trembles slightly even though the buzz is gone. Hyo pours a cup of tea and slides it across the table. He says congratulations. He says Do-yoon is now the fastest man in a 3-mile radius. He says that and $3 will buy him a bowl of noodles. Then he says, sit down. The real work starts now. Do-yoon sits. He takes the tea in his good hand, the ceramic warm against his palm, and he drinks. Outside, the rain starts again. Somewhere in the industrial district, an old man with a young man's memory crawls toward a phone. In a high-rise across the city, a man with a gold ring gets a call about a fighter who can age a man to dust with a single touch. The hunt is only beginning. The morning light is thin and gray through the dojo windows when Do-yoon sees his own face staring back at him from a rain-soaked sheet of paper. Hayo has tacked it to the wall beside the scroll with the cracked ink, and Do-yoon doesn't notice it at first. He's too busy trying to make his right hand close into a fist. The fingers twitch and nothing happens. The torn rotator cuff still screaming dull and deep every time he breathes wrong. Then his eyes drift left, and there he is. A grainy printed photo of a kid who looks younger than he feels. The poster is wet at the corners, the paper cheap and already starting to peel, but the text underneath is clear enough. Wanted. Jang Do-yoon. Below his name is a number, a bounty, a promise of payment for anyone who brings him in alive. Do-yoon stares at it for a long moment, his left hand still, and his right arm hanging useless at his side. He asks Hyo where he got it. Hayo doesn't look up from the tea he's pouring, just nods at the door like the answer's outside, waiting for them both. He says the posters went up overnight. Every alley and notice board in the underground plastered with Do-yoon's face. Do-yoon walks closer and sees something drawn beneath the bounty text, a symbol he doesn't recognize. It's a circle with a crack running through it, not broken, just split, like someone took a perfect thing and opened a seam in the middle. Inside the crack, there's a single dot, black and deliberate, almost like an eye. Do-yoon asks what the mark means. Hayo sets the teapot down and the ceramic clicks soft against the table. He says it's the sigil of the Hidden Epoch. The name lands in the quiet dojo like a stone dropped into still water. Do-yoon doesn't know the name. He's never heard it before, never seen the mark, never crossed paths with anyone who carried it. But the way Hayo says it, low and careful, and without any of his usual dry humor, tells Do-yoon everything he needs to know. This is bad. Hayo gestures for Do-yoon to sit. The kid obeys, lowering himself onto the worn wooden floor with his back against the wall and his dead arm cradled in his lap. Hayo takes a long sip of tea, and then he starts talking. And what he says rearranges the world Do-yoon thought he understood. The Hidden Epoch isn't a gang. It isn't a crew of pit fighters, or a gambling syndicate, or any of the other predators Do-yoon's been running from since the alley. It's older than all of that. Hayo says the faction has existed for longer than anyone can trace. Older than the dojos, older than the underground, older than the city itself. Their goal is simple and insane. They want to become timeless, not immortal in the vampire sense, not living forever through stolen years the way Do-yoon does it. They want to exist outside time entirely, to step out of the flow and watch the universe spin without them. Do-yoon asks how that's even possible. Hayo says they consume time. Not steal it, not borrow it, not burn it for speed the way Do-yoon's been doing. They take it from living things and they don't give it back. And every second they devour brings them one step closer to what they want. The Hidden Epoch harvests time from anyone they can catch, fighters and civilians, and anyone unlucky enough to cross their path. They drain years the way a slaughterhouse drains blood. Systematic and industrial, and without remorse. And the people they drain don't get to walk away with gray hair and a ruined body like Yoon Myung-soo did. They disappear. They become nothing, erased from the timeline. Their entire existence consumed to fuel the Epoch's endless hunger. Do-yoon's left hand curls into a fist on his knee. He says they're hunting him. Hyo nods. He says the poster isn't a bounty in the normal sense, not a price on his head for some pit boss to collect. It's a recruitment signal. The Hidden Epoch has noticed him. They've felt the thefts, sensed the ripples every time Do-yoon grabs a wrist and pulls a decade out of someone's lifeline. They know what he is. They know he's a time thief, and they want him. Not to kill him, to use him, to make him one of their harvesters, another pair of hands reaching into the world and pulling out fistfuls of stolen years for the faction's endless appetite. Do-yoon stares at the poster, and the cracked circle stares back. He asks what happens if he says no. Hayo's expression doesn't change, but something behind his eyes goes cold and distant and very old. He says the Hidden Epoch doesn't take no for an answer. If Do-yoon refuses, they'll take him anyway. They'll drain him dry, every stolen year he's carrying, every second of his original lifespan, everything that makes him alive instead of an absence. And then they'll erase what's left. Do-yoon's jaw tightens. He says they should fight. He says he's got a decade of stolen time humming in his system. His left hand is faster than it's ever been, and he's not going to roll over for some ancient death cult that wants to use him as a battery. Hayo sets his cup down, and the sound is sharper this time. He says fighting is exactly what the Hidden Epoch want. Every time Do-yoon uses his power against one of their agents, they learn more about him. They study his limits, his patterns, his tells. They catalog how fast he moves, how long he can sustain it, what triggers his theft, and what leaves him vulnerable. If he fights them head-on, he hands them the blueprint for his own destruction. Discretion is the only weapon they can't counter. If Do-yoon stays invisible, stays quiet, stays out of their reach until he understands what he's really capable of, he might have a chance. The kid wants to argue. His left hand is still clenched. His heart is still pounding. Every instinct in his body is screaming at him to move, to attack, to prove he's not prey. But he looks at Haeyo's face, at the gray hair and the empty palms, and the weight of years that aren't measured in wrinkles, and he forces himself to stop. He asks what Haeyo knows about the epoch. Haeyo pours more tea. The steam curls up between them, thin and white and fragile. He says he knows they've been hunting time thieves for centuries. He knows their leader is someone called Kwon Sung Ryol, a name Haeyo speaks like it tastes bad in his mouth. He knows the epoch has cells in every major city, hidden in plain sight, wearing ordinary faces and doing ordinary jobs while they wait for orders. And he knows that once they mark someone, they don't stop. Do-yoon's face is on those posters because someone in the epic has already decided he's worth collecting. The question isn't whether they'll come for him, it's when. Do-yoon looks at the poster again, at the split circle and the black dot, and his own face staring back at him like a stranger. He says he won't hide forever. Haeyo agrees. He says hiding isn't the goal. The goal is to buy time, and if there's one thing Do-yoon should understand by now, it's that time is the only currency that matters. Training starts tomorrow. Until then, Do-yoon stays inside the dojo, stays out of sight, and lets the posters do their work, while he figures out how to be something more than a thief with a dying arm and a handful of borrowed years. The rain starts again outside, a soft hiss against the roof tiles. Do-yoon leans his head back against the wall and closes his eyes. The cracked circle burns in his mind like an afterimage. And somewhere behind his ribs, the cold weight of stolen time shifts and settles and waits. Night falls over the city, and the rain keeps coming. A steady drumbeat on every rooftop and alley and rusted fire escape. The dojo is dark and quiet. Do-yoon asleep on a mat in the corner, with his dead arm propped on a folded towel. Haeyo sits by the window, watching the street below through a gap in the blinds. He's been sitting there for 3 hours, and he hasn't moved once. Across the street, 3 buildings down and 2 stories up, someone else is watching too. She doesn't move either. Her name is So-ji-ah, and she's been on this rooftop since sunset, crouched low behind the ledge with the rain running down her face and her eyes fixed on the dojo's front door. She's young, mid-20s maybe, with sharp cheekbones and a narrow jaw, and hair pulled back tight against her skull. Her clothes are black and practical. No logos, no bright colors, nothing that catches the light. She's been trained to disappear. But the thing that makes So-ji-ah dangerous isn't her training, and it isn't her patience, and it isn't the small curved blade sheathed at the small of her back. It's what happens when she moves, because So-ji-ah doesn't just move fast. She doesn't steal time or burn it or borrow it the way Do-yoon does. She splits it. When So-ji-ah activates her ability, the timeline fractures around her into parallel threads, and each thread carries a version of her, identical and independent and real. She can be in 3 places at once, 4 places, 5. Each clone is solid, each clone can fight, and each clone is disposable. The real So-ji-ah stays back, hidden, watching through her copies the way a puppeteer watches through her dolls. The Hidden Epoch found her when she was 17, and they've been sharpening her ever since. Tonight, her orders are simple. Observe, identify, report. She's here to confirm that Jang Do-yoon is the time thief they've been sensing, the one who's been ripping holes in the local flow every time he grabs a wrist and pulls. She's here to assess his defenses, catalog his allies, and determine the optimal moment to move in. So far, she's cataloged 1 ally, an old man with gray hair who hasn't left the dojo since sunset. The old man's hands are empty, and his posture is relaxed. But So-ji-ah has been doing this long enough to know that relaxed doesn't mean harmless. She marks him as a former operative, someone who knows the game, someone who's already seen everything she's planning to do. That complicates things. She shifts her weight slightly, just enough to keep her legs from going numb, and in the same motion, she activates her ability. Timeline fractures. 3 So-ji-ah crouch on 3 rooftops, each one identical, each one watching the dojo from a different angle. The first clone stays where she is, eyes on the front door. The second drops silently onto a lower roof 1 building over, getting a better angle on the side window. The third circles wide, coming at the dojo from the back, where the alley narrows into a dead end piled with trash bags and broken pallets. All three see the same thing. A quiet building with the lights off and the blinds drawn. Nothing moving inside. Nothing moving outside except the rain. The third clone settles into position behind a rusted dumpster and waits. She can stay like this for hours, motionless and patient and utterly invisible. It's what she was trained for. Inside the dojo, Hyo's eyes shift slightly toward the back window. He doesn't move. He doesn't reach for a weapon or wake Do-yoon or change his breathing. But his expression tightens. Just a fraction. Just enough. Old instincts whispering something his conscious mind can't confirm yet. He knows someone's out there. He doesn't know who or how many or what they want, but he knows the weight of a watcher's gaze. The subtle pressure of being observed by someone who knows how to do it properly. He's felt it before, 10 years ago, when he still had a power of his own and enemies on every side. He takes a slow sip of cold tea and keeps watching the street. The standoff holds through the deepest part of the night, through the slow hours when the rain turns to mist and the mist turns to silence. Seo-jia's clones stay in position, recording every detail, every movement, every shadow that passes behind the drawn blinds. The old man doesn't sleep. The young one doesn't wake. Somewhere across the city, in a high-rise office with no windows and no nameplate on the door, a man with a gold ring answers his phone and listens to a voice that tells him everything he needs to know about the fighter who can age a man to dust with a single touch. The hunt is wider now than Do-yoon understands. The Hidden Epoch is closing in, and Seo-jia is just the first wave. The real storm is still building, but for now, in the dark and the rain and the cold, the dojo holds its silence. 3 clones on 3 rooftops watch and wait and catalog. An old man with empty hands watches them back without knowing their faces. A kid with a dead arm and a decade of stolen time sleeps through it all, dreaming of a cracked circle and a black dot, and a seam in the world that's only beginning to open. The rain stops. Just like that, mid-drop, the water freezes in the air. Do-yoon's eyes snap open on the dojo floor, his dead arm screaming, his left hand already clenched. Hyo is on his feet by the window, one hand flat against the frame. The old man doesn't speak. He doesn't need to, because outside, in the sudden silence, something moves that shouldn't be moving. 3 shapes drop from 3 rooftops at the exact same second. Each one lands without a sound, without a stumble, without a single wasted motion. Each one is Seo-jia. Same sharp cheekbones, same black clothes, same small curved blade now drawn and glinting wet. But it's what she's carrying in her offhand that freezes Hyo's blood. A small sphere, no bigger than a plum, pulsing with a light that isn't light. It's the color of old bruises and dead clock faces. Hyo knows what it is before his brain can name it. Yeonwoo Bomb, the Hidden Epoch's signature tool. A charge that doesn't explode on impact. It waits. It burrows into the local flow and sits there, ticking down seconds like beads on a string. And when it goes off, everything inside a 10-meter radius gets locked into a single frozen instant. No escape. No counter. Just stillness. Forever. And there are 3 of them. Our boy is already moving, left hand reaching for the door. Hyo's voice cuts through the dojo like a blade. Don't. Do-yoon freezes mid-step. The old man's eyes are still fixed on the window, watching the clones fan out. One toward the front door, one toward the side window, one circling wide toward the back alley, where the trash bags are piled and the dumpster is rusted, and the third clone was already waiting. She was never just observing, she was planting. Now the first clone sets her sphere against the dojo's front step. It sticks to the wood like a leech and begins to pulse, slow and patient. The second clone presses hers against the side window frame. The third one is already at the back door, and the fourth sphere she'd hidden behind the dumpster an hour ago is still there, armed and waiting. 4 bombs, 4 frozen zones, 1 dojo. And Seo-jia hasn't said a single word. Do-yoon's left hand is shaking. Not from fear, from the stolen decade still humming in his bones, begging to be burned. He wants to move. He wants to hit something. He wants to rip time out of this assassin until she's dust on the pavement. But his right arm is dead weight, and he can't feel his fingers. And Hyo still hasn't moved from the window. They're not here to kill us, Hyo says quietly. The clones don't advance. They just stand there. 3 identical women in the rainless dark, each one holding a blade and watching. Then what do they want? Do-yoon's voice is rough with sleep and adrenaline. They want you to use your power. Right now, right here. Hyo's jaw tightens. Every second you burn, every year you steal, she's recording it, cataloging it, sending it back to her masters. The old man turns from the window and his eyes are tired. She's not the attack, Do-yoon. She's the test. Outside, the first clone tilts her head. Just a fraction. Just enough. And then, the sphere on the front step detonates. No fire, no blast, no sound. Just a ripple. Like heat rising off summer asphalt, expanding in a perfect circle. The front door of the dojo turns gray, then white, then transparent, as if the wood itself is forgetting how to exist in the present. The ripple spreads inward. Do-yoon scrambles backward, left hand dragging his dead arm, but the ripple is faster. It catches his right foot, and his right foot stops. Not injured, not broken, just frozen mid-step, trapped in an instant that no longer moves forward. He yanks, but the leg won't budge. It's like trying to pull concrete with your bare ankle. Hayo moves. For an old man who gave up fighting 10 years ago, he covers the distance fast. His hand closes around Do-yoon's wrist, and he pulls, hard. But the frozen zone is already spreading up Do-yoon's calf, and his knee and his thigh, and the kid is sinking into it like a stone into still water. The second bomb detonates. The side window shatters inward, but the glass doesn't fall. It hangs in the air, every shard frozen, a constellation of sharp edges suspended around the second ripple. Ripple from the back door hits a heartbeat later. And the fourth one, the one behind the dumpster, is already armed. Do-yoon is trapped up to his waist now, his left arm still free but useless, his right arm forgotten, his face twisted with rage and panic and the unbearable need to move. He reaches for his power. Hyo sees it in his eyes before the kid even opens his hand. Don't! But Do-yoon isn't listening. His left palm slams against the frozen floor, searching for something, anything, a tether he can grab and drain. But there's nothing alive in the ripple. No heartbeat, no breath, no flow of years. The bombs don't age. They don't think. They don't have time to steal. And so Jia's clones are standing just outside the radius, watching, waiting, cataloging. This is the trap. Do-yoon screams. Not a word, just a sound. Raw and furious and useless, as the freeze crawls up his ribs and tightens around his chest. Hayo closes his eyes. For 10 years, this old man has lived with empty palms. No stolen time, no borrowed speed, no weapon except patience and tea, and the quiet refusal to become the monster he used to be. But right now, watching a kid freeze to death inside a time bomb while an assassin stands outside taking notes, Hyo Suk-jun makes a choice. He opens his eyes, and for the first time in a decade, he reaches for what he buried. It's not a lot, just a few seconds really. Fragments, echoes of the years he gave up when he walked away from the Hidden Epoch and swore he'd never steal again. He kept them, not for fighting, not for power, just in case. Just for one moment where the cost of doing nothing was worse than the cost of breaking his vow. This is that moment. The old man drops to one knee beside Do-yoon and presses his palm against the frozen floor. And he spends every last second he has. The effect is immediate and terrifying. The gray floorboards beneath his hand begin to glow, a deep amber color, like honey held up to a flame. The ripple shudders. The freeze wavers, cracks spiderweb out from Hyo's palm. Thin fractures in the frozen instant, spreading outward through the dojo like lightning through glass. And then the trap shatters. Not breaks, shatters. Every frozen shard of it, every suspended moment, every captured instant, collapses at once with a sound like a church bell rung underwater. Do-yoon gasps and lurches forward as his body comes unstuck, his chest heaving, his dead arm flopping uselessly. Hyo is already standing. His face is gray. Not pale, not tired. Gray. The color of something that's been burned from the inside. He turns toward the door and says, very quietly, run. But Do-yoon doesn't run. He reaches out with his left hand to grab Hyo's shoulder, to pull the old man with him, to drag him through the back door and into the alley and away from whatever is coming next. His palm touches Hyo's neck, and his power activates. Not on purpose, not by intent, just automatic, instinctive, the same way a flinch happens before you know you're afraid. The tether snaps into place between Do-yoon's palm and Hyo's lifeline, and the theft begins. Do-yoon feels it immediately, the rush of stolen years pouring into him, faster than anything he's ever taken before. But these aren't normal years. These are the fragments Hyo kept, the echoes, the scraps. They're thin and brittle and they taste like regret. And there aren't many of them. The whole transfer lasts maybe 3 seconds. When it's over, Hyo Suk-jun is still standing, but his hair is white now, not gray. And his skin is paper. and his hands, those empty palms that held nothing for a decade, are shaking. He looks at Do-yoon, and he smiles. The kid is frozen again, but not from a bomb this time. From horror. He stares at his left hand like it's a weapon he didn't know he was holding, and he watches the last of Hyo's years settle into his system. And he can feel it. The new speed, the new coldness, the new crack in his soul that wasn't there before. No, Do-yoon whispers. The word is too small for what's happening. Hyo's legs give out. He sinks to the floor, slowly, the way an old building settles when the foundations finally fail. His back hits the wall, and he slides down until he's sitting, hands in his lap, eyes still open, and still calm, and still watching the kid he tried to save. It's okay, Hyo says. His voice is a dry whisper, the last leaf on a dead tree. Do-yoon drops to his knees in front of him. He grabs the old man's shoulders with his good hand, his left hand, the hand that just killed his only ally, and he can still feel the stolen seconds burning in his fingertips, and he wants to give them back. But he doesn't know how. He never learned how. Take it back, Do-yoon says. His voice cracks. Take it back. Take it. I don't want it. Take it. Hyo shakes his head. Just a little. Just enough. You can't give it back, he says. That's the rule. You can only steal. You can't return. Outside, the clones are moving. Sojia's 3 copies step forward in perfect unison, closing the distance, their blades still drawn, their faces blank. Real Seojia, the one on the rooftop, watches through their eyes and sees everything. She sees the old man dying on the dojo floor. She sees the young thief on his knees. She sees the transfer happen, the theft, the final proof that Jang Do-yoon's power is exactly what the Hidden Epoch wants it to be. And she files her report. Hyo's hand lifts. It takes everything he has left, which isn't much. Maybe the last half-second of his entire life. He touches Do-yoon's chest, right over the heart. Do not let them take it, he says. His eyes lock onto Do-yoon's, and there's no fear in them. No regret, no anger. Just a command. Your power is yours, not theirs. Remember that. Do-yoon opens his mouth to answer. But Hyo's hand drops. His eyes don't close. His chest doesn't rise again. And just like that, in the space between one heartbeat and the next, the old man's body finishes what the theft started. The skin tightens, the bones hollow, the flesh dries and flakes and crumbles. In 5 seconds, Hyo Suk-jun is dust on the dojo floor, gray dust on gray wood, and a faint smell of old tea and regret. Do-yoon doesn't scream. He doesn't cry. He just kneels there, one hand still raised, staring at the pile of ash that used to be the only person who told him the truth. The rain starts again outside. Just a drizzle, soft and cold, drifting through the shattered window. Sojia's clones stop at the threshold. They don't enter. They don't need to. The test is complete, and the data is collected, and the target is broken on the floor of a dead man's dojo, with a dead arm, and a live power and no one left to teach him how to use it. The first clone tilts her head again, the same fraction of movement, the same clinical assessment. Then she speaks. Her voice is flat and calm, and utterly without malice. It's worse that way. Jang Do-yoon. The Hidden Epoch extends an invitation. Surrender now, and you will be trained. You will be honed. Your power will serve a purpose greater than anything you can imagine. She pauses. Refuse, and we will take it from you by force. Do-yoon doesn't look up. He's still staring at the dust. His left hand is still buzzing with Hyo's final seconds, and the coldness in his soul is spreading, and he can feel the new crack forming. Deeper than the others, right down the center of everything he thought he understood. Something hardens in his chest. Some door that might have stayed open slams shut and locks. He thinks about Hyo's empty palms. He thinks about the tea and the scroll and the quiet lesson about spending a second like a decade. And then he thinks about ripping every last year out of every last Hidden Epoch agent until there's nothing left of them but dust on the pavement. He lifts his head. His eyes are wet, but his voice is steady. No. The clones don't react. Don't flinch, don't frown, don't argue. They just step backward into the rain. 3 identical women with 3 identical blades, and they dissolve into the dark without a sound. The real Sojia is already gone from the rooftop. Her report is filed. The next phase begins, and our boy is alone in the dojo with the dust of his only ally, and a power he didn't ask for, and a war he didn't start, but is damn sure going to finish. He stays on his knees for a long time. The rain soaks through the broken window. The cold seeps into his dead arm and his living hand, and the new crack in his soul that will never fully close. And when he finally stands, When he finally forces his legs to hold him, and his lungs to breathe, and his eyes to look at the pile of gray ash one. Last time, he makes a promise. Not to Heo. Heo is gone. To himself. Nobody else gets to die for him. Nobody else pays the price for his power. If the Hidden Epoch wants a weapon, they're going to get one. But it won't be him on their leash. It'll be him coming through their door with 10 years of stolen time in his left hand and a dead man's lesson in his chest, and absolutely nothing left to lose. He scoops a handful of ash into a torn piece of cloth from his sleeve, ties it shut, tucks it into his jacket, over his heart. Then he turns toward the back door, the one alley where the fourth bomb is still armed and waiting. He doesn't know where he's going. He doesn't know how to fight an entire ancient faction with one working arm and a power he barely understands. But he knows one thing. Seo Jia saw everything. His speed, his limits, his weakness. And now the Hidden Epoch has its data. The hunt isn't surveillance anymore. It's a siege. And the next wave won't come with bombs. It'll come with something worse. Something designed specifically to break a time thief who just lost the only person who could teach him how to survive. Do-yoon steps into the rain. Ash is warm against his chest. And somewhere in the city, in a high-rise with no windows and no nameplate, a phone rings and a voice says 4 words that will haunt our boy for the rest of his very short life. Bring him in alive! The rain hammers the pavement as our boy walks through the city with a dead arm and a dead man's ash over his heart. He doesn't know where he's going, not exactly. He just keeps moving, one foot after the other, letting the cold keep him awake. Streets are empty this late. Nothing but neon reflections in puddles and the distant rumble of trucks on the highway. Then he sees it. A piece of paper plastered to a lamppost, wet and torn at the edges, flapping in the wind. It's not his wanted poster this time. It's something else. A flyer printed on thick cream stock, gold lettering, a single line of text. Private auction, rare acquisitions, midnight, warehouse 17. And in the corner, almost too small to notice, the symbol. A cracked circle with a dot inside. Do-yoon stares at it for a long moment, rain dripping off his chin. Heo never mentioned an auction. But Heo never mentioned a lot of things. And now Heo's ashes rest in a torn cloth over his heart. He rips the flyer off the lamppost and keeps walking. Warehouse 17 is in the old port district, 3 miles east, past the container yards and the abandoned cannery. He walks the whole way. By the time he gets there, his hair is plastered to his skull, and his right arm is a dull ache in its socket, and his left hand is tingling with cold. Warehouse 17 doesn't look like much from the outside. Just corrugated steel and rust. A loading dock with a single bulb swinging in the wind. 2 men in dark coats standing by a steel door. They don't ask for a ticket. They don't ask for ID. One of them just looks at the flyer in Do-yoon's hand, looks at the dead arm hanging useless, looks at the wet kid with the wet temples and the hollow eyes. He steps aside. Steel door slides open, and warm light spills out, and our boy walks into a different world. The warehouse interior is unrecognizable. Chandeliers hang from the steel rafters, dripping crystal and candlelight. The floor is polished marble, white and black tiles in a chessboard pattern. Rows of velvet chairs face a raised platform with a podium and a gavel, and a man in a wine-colored suit. The room is half full, maybe 40 people, all of them dressed like money. Silk dresses and tailored coats, and watches that cost more than Do-yoon's entire debt. Nobody looks at him twice. He's just another desperate face in a room full of predators. And he finds a spot against the back wall, in the shadows, where his dead arm won't draw attention. The auctioneer taps his gavel. Park Min-soo. He's tall and lean with silver at his temples, and a smile that never reaches his eyes. He has the voice of a man who has sold 1,000 terrible things, and never lost a minute of sleep. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's acquisition event. He pauses, lets the anticipation build. We have a very special collection this evening. Very rare. Very fresh. He gestures to the curtain behind him. Shall we begin? The curtain pulls back and Do-yoon's stomach drops. There's a woman on the platform. She's young, maybe 20, in a simple gray dress. And she's standing inside a sphere of faint blue light. The light pulses like a heartbeat, slow and steady, and the woman inside it isn't moving. No, that's not right. She is moving, but so slowly it's barely visible. Her chest rises an inch every 10 seconds. Her eyes blink over the course of a full minute. She's trapped in a bubble of stolen time. And while she stands there, frozen to the world, something is draining the years out of her. The bubble is connected to a small brass device at the base of the platform. A thing of gears and glass tubes and a single glowing crystal. The crystal pulses in rhythm with the bubble. Every pulse is a year. Every pulse is a life. Park Min-soo smiles. This is Lot 1, female, 23 years old, approximately 62 years of harvestable time remaining. Bidding starts at 400 million won. The crowd murmurs. A man in the front row raises a paddle. Do-yoon doesn't hear the numbers. He's staring at the woman in the bubble, at her frozen face, at the faint lines already forming around her eyes as the years drain out of her. There are more bubbles behind the curtain. He can see them now. The faint blue glow. Maybe a dozen of them, each one holding a person, each one connected to a brass device, each one slowly dying, while rich men in velvet chairs bid on their remaining years. The auction continues. Lot 2 is an old man with a kind face and hands that look like they worked for a living. Lot 3 is a teenager, maybe 15, with a skateboard tucked under her frozen arm. Lot 4 is Do-yoon steps out of the shadows. He doesn't think about it. He doesn't weigh the odds or calculate the risk or remember Hayo's lessons about discretion and patience and spending a second like a decade. He just walks toward the platform, left hand clenched, right arm swinging dead at his side. Park Min-soo sees him coming. The auctioneer's smile doesn't change, but his eyes sharpen, and his hand drifts toward the brass device on the podium. Ah, an unregistered bidder. He taps the device. This is highly irregular. A bubble forms around Do-yoon. It's not the slow kind, not the harvesting kind. It's a weaponized bubble, a sphere of thick amber light that slams down around him like a cage, and inside it, time slows to a crawl. The world outside becomes a smear of color and motion. Park Min-soo turns back to the crowd. Apologies for the interruption. Now, Lot 4. Do-yoon's left hand moves. Not fast, not in the way stolen speed usually works, the syrup's slow whirled and the buzz in his palm. This is different. This is his own speed. The speed he discovered himself. The speed that comes from being present in the moment instead of reaching for the next one. The bubble slows time inside it, but the bubble itself is just a construct, a thing of gears and crystal and a man's will. And constructs have limits. Do-yoon presses his left palm against the inner wall of the bubble. The light is cold and humming, and it resists him, pushes back, tries to drain the years out of him the way it drains the captives. But he's not a captive. He's a time thief with up to 24 hours of stolen time in his bones and a dead man's lesson in his chest. He doesn't pull, he pushes. A single second of his own time spent deliberately, aimed at the bubble's weak point. The place where the construct's time meets real time. The seam. The bubble shatters. It doesn't pop or fade or dissolve. It shatters. A sound like a church bell dropped on marble. And amber light sprays across the warehouse in 1,000 glittering shards. Park Min-soo spins around, his smile finally cracking. That's... He doesn't finish the sentence. Do-yoon is already moving, not with stolen speed, not yet. Just raw momentum and a left hand that knows exactly what it wants. He vaults onto the platform, ducks under Park Min-soo's wild swing, and grabs the brass device at the base of the podium. Crystal pulses in his grip. He can feel the years inside it. The stolen lives, the decades of time ripped from innocent people and bottled up for sale. It's warm, it's almost alive, and it's fragile. He squeezes. The crystal cracks. The lights flicker. Every bubble in the warehouse wavers, the blue glow stuttering like a bad signal. And inside the bubbles, the captives stir. The woman in the gray dress blinks. Real time. Normal time. She gasps, stumbles, catches herself on the edge of the platform. Park Min-soo screams something, a curse or a command, but Do-yoon doesn't hear it. He's squeezing harder now, the crystal shards biting into his palm, blood mixing with stolen light. The device groans. The gears seize. And then the crystal explodes. The shockwave throws Park Min-soo off the platform and into the front row of velvet chairs. The brass device crumples like tinfoil, and every single bubble in Warehouse 17 pops at once. The captives fall to the marble floor, gasping and shaking and clutching at their own arms, like they can't believe they're solid anymore. The rich men in the velvet chairs are screaming now, scrambling for the exits, silk dresses torn and tailored coats abandoned. Do-yoon stands in the middle of the chaos, left hand bleeding, right arm dead, chest heaving. He looks at the shattered crystal in his palm. Then he looks at the captives. The old man with the kind face helps the teenager to her feet. The woman in the gray dress is crying, great heaving sobs. But she's also laughing, the way people do when they've just remembered they're alive. One of them walks toward him, a young woman, maybe 25, with sharp eyes and a bruise on her cheek, and the bearing of someone who didn't break even when they tried to drain. Her dry. She stops in front of him. You're the time thief from the posters. It's not a question. Do-yoon nods once. She studies him. The dead arm, the bleeding hand, the white at the temples, the ash-stained cloth over his heart. My name is Lee Jae-hyun. She says it like it should mean something. Maybe it does. 3 weeks ago, the Hidden Epoch took my brother. They said he had potential. They said he could serve a greater purpose. Her voice doesn't shake. The next time I saw him, he was dust. She looks at the shattered device, at the panicked auctioneer scrambling out of a broken chair, at the empty bubbles and the freed captives, and the sky starting to lighten outside the warehouse windows. You want information about the Hidden Epoch? Again, not a question. Yes. Then you need to know 3 things. She holds up one finger. First, their harvesting isn't random. They target people with latent time abilities, people who don't even know what they are. My brother was one. Every person in those bubbles was one. A second finger. Second, they're building something. I don't know what, but the harvested time isn't being consumed. It's being stored somewhere in the city, in a facility that doesn't exist on any map. A third finger. Third, Seojia wasn't sent to kill you. She was sent to test you. And you passed. Do-yoon's left hand stops bleeding. The wound is already closing, the stolen years knitting flesh back together faster than any normal healing. He looks at her. Why are you telling me this? Because you broke the machine. She says it simply, flatly, the way you state a fact that doesn't need explanation. I've been trying to find that facility for 6 months. Every lead dried up. Every contact disappeared. And then you walk into an auction house with one working arm and shatter a harvesting device with your bare hand. She reaches into her coat and pulls out a folded map. It's hand-drawn, ink on butcher paper, covered in notes and crossed-out locations and question marks. This is everything I know. Every Hidden Epoch site I've identified. Every pattern in their movements. Every guess about where they're keeping the stored time. She holds it out. Take it. Do-yoon takes the map. It's heavier than it looks. Come with me. The words are out before he realizes he's saying them. Lee Jae-hyun shakes her head. I'm not a fighter. I'm just someone who lost a brother and spent 6 months learning how to draw maps. She pulls her coat tighter. But if you find the facility, if you find out what they're building with all that stolen time, she meets his eyes. Burn it down. Burn it all down. She turns and walks into the chaos, helping the old man and the teenager toward the back exit. And within 30 seconds, she's gone. Just another shadow in a city full of them. Do-yoon folds the map and tucks it into his jacket, next to the ash. The warehouse is almost empty now. The auctioneer is gone. The rich men are gone. The captives are free. The chandeliers still sway from the shattered crystal's shockwave, their light catching on the broken brass and the scattered glass, and the dark stain where Park Min-soo hit the velvet chairs. Our boy stands alone on the platform, blood drying on his left hand, map burning against his chest. 11 months to live. Maybe less. Hidden Epoch facility somewhere in the city, full of stolen time and terrible purpose. And now, he knows what they're building toward. Something big. Something that needs decades of harvested years from people who never even knew they had power. He looks at his reflection in a shard of crystal on the floor. White hair, cracked soul, dead arm. But his eyes are clear. Hyo told him to be discreet, to avoid giving the epic data, to train and plan and wait. Hyo is dead. Discretion died with him. Do-yoon steps off the platform and walks toward the warehouse door, and the morning light hits his face. And somewhere in the city, a phone rings in a high-rise with no windows. The voice on the other end is calm and clinical and utterly without malice. He destroyed the auction. A pause. Bring him in, now. Our boy doesn't hear the phone call, but he feels the shift in the air, the pressure dropping. The sense of something vast and ancient turning its attention toward him. He stops on the warehouse steps, looks up at the gray sky, and smiles. Let them come. The morning light doesn't last long. By noon, Do-yoon is in a district of condemned factories, the kind of place where street signs are rusted blank, and the only sound is the drip of water through broken roofs. He's got Lee Jae-hyun's map open in his left hand, the dead right arm hanging useless at his side. The map says Facility 7 is inside an old textile mill on a dead-end street behind a collapsed overpass. Do-yoon folds the map one-handed and tucks it back into his jacket. The mill is a 4-story brick skeleton with blown-out windows and a smokestack leaning at an angle that says it should have fallen down decades ago. He can feel them before he sees them. The stolen decade in his bones hums like a tuning fork the moment he crosses the property line. Time thieves inside. At least 4. Maybe more. The front door is chained shut with a padlock the size of a fist, so Do-yoon goes around to a side window and slides through the broken glass with his left arm braced against the frame. Factory floor is dark and full of old looms draped in cobwebs. But there's a light in the back. Electric, not natural. A single bulb hanging over a reinforced steel door set into the floor. Guess what kind of door sends a man underground? He crosses the factory floor without a sound, the stolen time in his veins making everything slow and deliberate. The steel door isn't locked. They're arrogant, these Epoch agents. They don't expect anyone to find them. Do-yoon pulls the door open, and a ladder drops into darkness. He climbs down one-handed, using his dead right arm as a brace against the rungs. The underground chamber is a concrete bunker with fluorescent lights and a smell like old hospitals. 3 agents in gray uniforms turn to face him the moment his boots hit the floor. First one, a woman with a shaved head and a coil of copper wire wrapped around her wrist, doesn't even ask who he is. She just lunges. Do-yoon sidesteps. The stolen decade gives him a half-second advantage. The world syrups slow as she passes through the space where he just was. He slaps his left palm against her bare neck and pulls. 10 years rip out of her in a cold rush. She ages 30, 40, 50 in a single breath. Hair whitening, skin wrinkling, hands curling into claws. She hits the concrete gasping. The second agent, a stocky man with a scar bisecting his lip, throws a punch aimed at Do-yoon's dead arm. Smart. Hit the part that can't fight back. Do-yoon twists his body so the punch skims past his ribs, and his left hand finds the man's exposed wrist. Another pull. Another decade. The agent screams as his face collapses into wrinkles, and his joints lock up with sudden arthritis. He's 70 years old before he hits the ground. That's 2. The third agent is already running. Not away, toward an alarm panel on the far wall. Do-yoon vaults over a steel table and intercepts him with a speed that shouldn't be possible for a man with one working arm. He grabs the agent by the collar, and the skin contact is enough. Years drain out of the third man in a torrent. The agent's thumb is an inch from the alarm button when his hand turns to a withered claw and he crumples sideways. 3 agents down in under 20 seconds. Our boy stands in the middle of the bunker, breathing hard. Stolen time buzzes in his system, over a day's worth now. More than he's ever held at once. It feels wrong. Too much. The fluorescent lights flicker. Do-yoon's vision blurs at the edges, and when he blinks, he sees something that shouldn't be there. Himself, eating ramen in a convenience store 3 weeks ago, before any of this started. The image is sharp and vivid, and gone in half a second. He shakes his head. The lights flicker again. Another after-image slams into his vision. This one is him and Hyo in the dojo, tea steaming between them. Hyo's mouth moving around words Do-yoon can no longer hear. It's not a memory, it's too real. He can smell the tea, feel the warmth of the cup. His left hand is trembling now. Stolen years are crashing through his system like a river that's broken its dam, and he's drowning in time he didn't earn. The bunker walls shimmer. A third after-image hits harder than the first 2. Hyo crumbling into dust on the dojo floor, the light going out of the old man's eyes. Do-yoon screaming with a voice that's already hoarse. He staggers against the steel table, and his dead right arm bangs against the edge without him feeling it. The after-images are coming faster now. Yoon Myung-soo collapsing in the warehouse, gray-haired and broken. Gang Chol's elbow snapping under Do-yoon's palm. The pit, the pipe, the gold ring, the blood on the canvas. Every theft he's ever committed is playing back at once. A lifetime of stolen moments crashing into the present. And then he feels something worse. A rip. Not in his body, in the air, in the world. The fluorescent lights shatter all at once, spraying glass across the concrete, and in the sudden darkness, a thin line of white light appears at the center of the bunker. It's 6 feet tall and hair thin, and it's screaming. Not with sound, with pressure. The air in the bunker rushes toward the crack like water down a drain. Papers and dust and shards of glass spiral into it and vanish. Do-yoon grabs the steel table with his left hand and holds on. The crack widens. Now it's an inch across. Now 2 inches. On the other side, there's nothing but white, a void so absolute it makes his eyes ache. A time rupture. He's heard Hyo talk about these in the quiet hours of the morning. What happens when too much stolen time pools in one place? When the fabric of the present can't hold the weight of all those ripped-out years. It will keep widening. It will erase everything within 100 meters. The bunker, the mill, the street above. Maybe more. Do-yoon pushes off the table and stumbles toward the rupture, his left hand reaching out. He doesn't know what he's going to do. Push his own stolen time into the crack and hope it seals? Throw himself between the rupture and the world and let it take him instead. His palm is an inch from the white line when a hand closes around his wrist. The grip is firm and warm and absolutely steady. Don't. The voice is calm. Not panicked, not angry, not afraid. Just calm. Do-yoon turns his head and sees a man he has never met before. No Tae-ho is maybe 40, with a weathered face and deep-set eyes, and the calloused hands of someone who has worked with them for decades. He wears a simple gray jacket with no insignia, no weapon, nothing that marks him as anything but a man who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Except he isn't. He belongs here. He's supposed to be here. No releases Do-yoon's wrist and steps past him toward the rupture. The white light reflects in his eyes, but he doesn't flinch. He raises his right hand and places his palm directly against the crack. Time is not a weapon, he says, quiet and certain. It is a river, and rivers can be calmed. His fingers move, not fast, not dramatic, just precise. Each digit traces a pattern against the white void, and where his touch lands, the screaming stops. The crack begins to close. Not by force, by persuasion. No isn't fighting the rupture. He's unknotting it, untangling the snarl of stolen decades that Do-yoon's rampage tore open. The pressure in the bunker drops. The white light dims. The hair-thin line shrinks to a thread, to a filament, to nothing. The rupture seals. The emergency lights kick on, red and dim, and the bunker is suddenly just a bunker again. Concrete walls, flickering bulbs, 3 unconscious agents aging on the floor, and no Tae-ho standing in the center of it all, lowering his hand with no more effort than a man closing a book. Do-yoon's left hand is still trembling. His vision is still streaked with after-images that come and go like heat lightning. He opens his mouth to speak, but No raises a hand to stop him. 3 agents, No says, looking at the withered bodies on the floor. He took decades from each, all at once, without control, without precision. He turns to face Do-yoon. His expression isn't angry, it's sad. You are a storm of stolen moments, he says. Let me teach you stillness. Do-yoon's legs give out. He doesn't fall so much as fold, his back against the steel table, his dead arm a dead weight, his left hand still vibrating with decades of stolen time that won't settle. How did you find me? His voice is hoarse. I felt the rupture forming before you even entered the building. No crouches, so they're at eye level. I've been tracking you since the auction house. That stunt you pulled with the time bubble. It lit up the city for anyone who knows how to look. He pauses. Seo isn't the only one who's been watching you. Do-yoon's jaw tightens. Are you with the Hidden Epoch? No. No says it without hesitation. I was a researcher for them once, 20 years ago, before I understood what they were building toward. He stands and extends a hand. I left. I've been cleaning up their mess ever since. Sealing ruptures, tracking rogue time thieves, teaching the ones who can still be taught. Do-yoon stares at the offered hand. Why would you help me? Because you're not a monster. No's voice is patient, unhurried. You're a man who was given a weapon he doesn't understand, and a deadline he can't escape. The Hidden Epoch wants to turn you into something that kills without thinking. I want to turn you into something that thinks before it acts. Do-yoon takes the hand. No pulls him to his feet, and the movement is steady and effortless. No wasted motion, no extra force. In the red glow of the emergency lights, Do-yoon sees the after-images still flickering at the edges of his sight. His past selves are still there. The pit fighter, the thief, the student, the mourner. But they're quieter now. No's presence is a stillness that spreads like ripples in reverse, calming the chaos. The rupture. Do-yoon looks at the spot where the white crack was. That was me. Yes. If you hadn't been here, it would have erased this building and everything within 100 meters. Yes. No says it the way you'd state a weather forecast. It's not your fault. You were never taught how to hold stolen time without it tearing through you. Heo Sok-jun knew the cost of the theft, but he didn't know how to teach you containment. That wasn't his gift. The name hits Do-yoon like a punch. You knew Heo. I knew of him. No gestures toward the ladder. We should leave. The Epic will send reinforcements within the hour, and you need to learn something before the next time you steal. Do-yoon looks at the 3 agents on the floor. They're still breathing. Old, broken, but alive. He didn't kill them. That's something at least. What do I need to learn? No starts climbing the ladder, his movements unhurried and exact. How to hold a decade in your hand, he says, and spend only a second. The waterfall is a 10-meter drop into a black pool. Cold enough to steal breath, No Taeho stands waist deep in the water and doesn't shiver. Do-yoon is on a flat rock 3 meters from the spray, his dead right arm tied against his chest with a strip of cloth. He's been sitting there for 2 hours. His legs went numb 40 minutes ago. The after images from the bunker still flicker at the edges of his sight. Pale ghosts of his own past selves that appear and vanish like heat lightning. No hasn't spoken since they arrived. He just stands in the water, eyes closed, breathing slow enough that Do-yoon counts 8 seconds between each exhale. The only sound is the waterfall, and the screaming in Do-yoon's head that won't shut up. The stolen decades from the bunker are still churning inside him. Decades that don't belong to him. Decades that feel like broken glass in his bloodstream. Every few minutes, his left hand twitches, and he has to clench it into a fist to stop it from reaching for something that isn't there. No opens his eyes. Stand up. Do-yoon's legs don't want to cooperate, but he forces them anyway, the rock slick under his bare feet. His balance shot because the dead arm throws everything off center. No gestures at the pool. Get in! The water is so cold it burns. Do-yoon wades in until it's at his chest, and his teeth are chattering, and his left hand is vibrating with decades he can't spend, and decades he can't give back. No watches him without expression. You're holding 37 years that aren't yours. Do-yoon knows. He feels every single one of them. The problem, No says, isn't that you stole them. The problem is that you're holding them wrong. You're gripping stolen time the way a drowning man grips a rope. White-knuckled. Desperate. Every second you hold that tight, the time fights you. And stolen time that fights back will tear you apart. He raises one hand out of the water, palm up. A single drop from the waterfall lands in the center of his palm. It sits there, a perfect sphere, not breaking, not rolling. That's 1 second. No tilts his hand. The drop slides off and vanishes into the pool. That's how you spend it. You hold it long enough to aim it, and then you let it go completely. No gripping, no clinging. Hold, aim, release. If you try to crush a second into powder, it explodes. The rupture in the bunker was you crushing 3 decades into dust all at once. It's still shaking. How do I stop gripping? First, you sit. No points at a spot directly under the waterfall, where the water pounds down with enough force to knock a man flat. There, and you feel every drop as a separate moment. Not a wall of water. Individual moments. Each one arrives, exists, and is gone. You don't catch them. You don't keep them. Watch them pass. Do-yoon looks at the waterfall. That's going to hurt. Yes. He walks into it anyway. The first impact drives him to his knees. The water is a hammer on his shoulders. His skull. His dead right arm still bound against his chest, and every instinct screams at him to get out, to move, to fight back. He tries to feel the individual drops. He can't. It's just pain and noise, and the decades in his left hand screaming louder than the waterfall, because they want to be spent. They want to be burned. They want to do something other than sit inside a broken fighter who can't even stand up straight. 30 seconds in, his control slips. A pulse of stolen time erupts from his left hand without his permission. The waterfall stutters. For half a heartbeat, the entire cascade freezes. 10,000 drops suspended in midair like a chandelier of glass. Then the pulse passes, and the water crashes down twice as hard, knocking him flat on his back, his head bouncing off the rock beneath the pool. No pulls him out by the collar of his shirt. You lasted less than a minute. Do-yoon coughs water onto the rock. Told you it was going to hurt. Again, he goes back in. This time he lasts 90 seconds before another uncontrolled pulse ripples out of his hand, and the water around him briefly reverses direction, spraying upward instead of down, and No has to drag him out again before he drowns. Again. 2 minutes this time. He makes it 3 before his left hand clenches into a fist without his permission, and a shockwave of stolen time punches a 2-meter hole in the waterfall, a gap where no water falls, and the silence of it is worse than the noise. No pulls him out. His back is bleeding. His dead arm has come loose from the binding and hangs at his side like a chunk of meat. He can't feel his feet. This isn't working. It's working exactly as it should. No crouches beside him. Every time you lose control, you lose a little less stolen time. The excess is bleeding off. That's the point. You walked in carrying 37 years of chaos. Right now you're down to maybe 30. By the time you can sit under that waterfall for 10 minutes without a single pulse, you'll be holding exactly what your body can contain. He stands and walks back into the pool. Again. Do-yoon doesn't move. I can't. The words come out before he can stop them. No turns around. Say that again. I can't. Do-yoon's voice is raw. His left hand is still shaking. The after images are still flickering. I can't sit still. I can't feel the drops. Every time I try, all I feel is him. Heo! His hand on my shoulder. The way his eyes looked when he realized what was happening. The dust that was left after. I feel that more than I feel the water. I can't stop feeling it. Silence. Just the waterfall. No doesn't move for a long moment. Then he walks back to the rock and sits down next to Do-yoon, their shoulders almost touching. The first man I killed with stolen time was my brother. Do-yoon's head snaps up. No is looking at the waterfall, face unreadable. I was 21. We were both researchers for the Hidden Epoch. We thought we were doing important work, harvesting time from volunteers, preserving it for future generations. Very noble, very clean. Then one day my brother found out what they were really building. He tried to destroy the storage facility. No's voice doesn't change. They sent me to stop him. I was faster. I'd stolen more. When I touched him, I took 40 years in a single second. He was 26. He pauses. I held him while he turned to dust. And then I went back to work, because I didn't know what else to do. Do-yoon can't speak. It took me 3 years to leave. 3 years of sealing ruptures I'd helped create. 3 years of telling myself I was making it right. 3 years before I understood that guilt isn't a debt you pay off. It's a teacher. It shows you exactly where you went wrong, so you never go there again. He turns to look at Do-yoon. What happened with Hyo Seok-jun wasn't your fault. You know that, right? Your power activated automatically. He touched you. It was an accident. He waits. But that doesn't make it hurt less. And it shouldn't. Pain is the only thing that teaches you to be careful. Do-yoon's eyes are wet and he doesn't care. I killed him. He was trying to help me and I killed him. No, you didn't. No's voice is quiet. The addiction killed him. He gave up his power, but the hunger never left. He spent 20 years starving for time he wouldn't let himself take. When you accidentally pulled, he didn't resist. He let go. That was his choice. Do-yoon shakes his head. He didn't choose that. He chose to save you instead of himself. That's different from being murdered. Don't confuse the two. The waterfall roars. Do-yoon's left hand stops shaking. Slowly, like a cramp releasing, the decades inside him settle. They're still there. They'll always be there. But they're quieter now. No stands up and holds out his hand. One more time, and this time, when you feel him, don't push it away. Let it be there. The grief, the guilt, the memory. Let it exist alongside the water. Don't fight either of them. Just watch them pass. Do-yoon takes the hand. No pulls him to his feet. He walks back into the waterfall. The water hits him, and he doesn't brace against it this time. He lets it hit. He lets the cold be cold. He lets Hyo be there in his mind, gray-haired and patient, pouring tea in the dojo with the scroll on the wall. He lets the guilt sit in his chest like a stone. And then he stops trying to feel individual drops. He just breathes. The waterfall is a waterfall again. Not a wall of separate moments. Not a thing to be dissected or controlled. Just water, falling. The way water has fallen for 10,000 years before him and will fall for 10,000 years after. He sits there. His left hand doesn't pulse. The decades don't scream. The after-images fade. 10 seconds pass. His breathing steadies. At 30 seconds, he opens his eyes. No is standing at the edge of the pool, watching. He doesn't smile, but something in his expression shifts. Might be approval. Do-yoon stays under the waterfall for 4 more minutes. When he finally walks out, his legs are numb. His back is bruised. His dead arm is a frozen weight against his rib, and his left hand is completely still. He collapses on the rock. No tosses him a dry cloth. That was 5 minutes. You have 11 months of life left. By the time we're done, you'll be able to sit under that waterfall for an hour. Do-yoon wraps the cloth around his shoulders. Hyo told me once that a single second used perfectly is worth more than a decade stolen in desperation. I didn't understand it then. Do you understand it now? The decades are still there, but they're not fighting him anymore. I'm starting to. No nods once. Then he walks over to a tree at the edge of the clearing and plucks a single dead leaf from a low branch. He holds it up. The leaf is brown and brittle, curled at the edges, the kind of leaf that crumbles at a touch. A decade is a hammer. It smashes everything you swing it at. A second is a scalpel. It cuts only what needs cutting. Most time thieves never learn the difference. They spend their whole lives swinging decades like clubs and wondering why everything they touch shatters. He releases the leaf. It falls. Slow, spinning, a dead leaf drifting toward the water. No watches it fall, and then he moves. Not fast, not dramatic. Just one finger, extended, touching the exact center of the leaf at the exact moment it reaches his waist. The leaf stops, balances on his fingertip, untorn, unbroken. That's 1 second. No lets the leaf slide off his finger and float down to the pool. I didn't steal it. I didn't freeze it. I just met it exactly where it was and gave it exactly enough to stop. No more, no less. Do-yoon stares at the leaf now floating on the water. You spent 1 second of your own life to catch a dead leaf. Yes. Why? Because precision is the only thing that separates a weapon from a disaster. No turns to face him. Your power is theft. You take time from others and add it to your own. That makes you fast. It doesn't make you precise. If you rely only on stolen speed, you'll win fights by outrunning your enemies, but you'll never outrun yourself. The Hidden Epoch has operatives who've been stealing time for decades. They're faster than you, stronger than you. The only way you beat them is by being smarter than them. And smart is just precision applied to thinking. He gestures at the waterfall. That's why we're here. Not to make you stronger, to make you precise. By the time I'm done with you, you'll be able to spend a single second to dodge a bullet instead of burning a decade to outrun one. You'll be able to steal exactly 1 year from an enemy instead of ripping out their whole life by accident. You'll be able to touch someone without killing them. The last sentence lands like a punch. Like Heo, like anyone. No's voice is steady. You stole from Gang Chol by instinct. You stole from Yoon Myung-soo on purpose. You stole from the 3 agents in the bunker in a panic. Every time you've used this power, you've taken decades. You've never taken a single year. You've never taken a month. You've never taken a day. You don't know how. And until you learn, anyone you touch is going to age 30 years and turn to dust. That's a curse, not a gift. Do-yoon is quiet for a long moment. Teach me how to take a day. First, you need to learn how to hold a second. No walks back into the pool and gestures for Do-yoon to follow. They stand facing each other, waist deep in freezing water, the waterfall roaring behind them. No raises his hand, palm out. Push 1 second of your own life into my palm. No more. 1 second. If you push more, I'll know. If you push less, nothing happens. You have to feel exactly 1 second of your own existence and send it to me. Do-yoon stares at the offered palm. I don't know how to measure a second. Yes, you do. You just don't know you do. Every living thing knows how long a second is. It's built into your heartbeat. Close your eyes. Do-yoon closes his eyes. The waterfall is thunder. The cold is needles. His heartbeat is steady for the first time all day. Feel your pulse. He feels it. Thump, thump, thump. That's your clock. Every beat is roughly 1 second. You've been alive for roughly 11 months more. You have millions of heartbeats left. I'm asking you to give me one of them. Not stolen time, your life. 1 heartbeat. Do-yoon opens his eyes. That'll shorten my life by 1 second. Yes. It's not much. No, it's not. But it's real. And that's the difference. When you steal time, you're taking something that doesn't belong to you. It's borrowed speed. It burns hot and fast and leaves you hollow. When you spend your own time, even 1 second, it's yours. It does exactly what you tell it to do. No chaos, no rupture, no after images. Pure precision. That's what Heo meant when he said, a real fighter owns their speed. Do-yoon looks at No's palm, the cold hand, the fast hand. He presses his palm against No's and closes his eyes again. He feels his heartbeat. He feels the river of his own life, shorter than it should be, running faster than it should be, but still his, still flowing. He chooses 1 beat, 1 thump. He pushes it out of his chest, down his arm, through his palm, into No's hand. There's no flash of light, no time dilation, no screaming, just a brief warmth in his palm, and then it's gone. No lowers his hand. That was exactly 1 second. You just spent your own life with surgical precision. How do you feel? Do-yoon opens his eyes. Tired. He pauses. And calm. Good. The tired is real. You gave something up. The calm is also real. You gave it up on purpose. That's the difference between theft and sacrifice. A thief takes and panics. A fighter spends and stays still. They stand in the cold water for a moment longer, and No turns and walks toward the shore. We'll do that 100 more times before sunset. By the end of the week, you'll be able to spend a single second without closing your eyes. By the end of the month, you'll be able to spend a single second in the middle of a fight without breaking stride. Do-yoon follows him out of the pool. His left hand isn't cold anymore. It's warm. Just barely. Just enough. They build a fire as the sun goes down, the flames throwing orange light across the black pool, and the white waterfall, and the bruised silence of the mountain. No produces rice and dried fish from his pack, and cooks it without ceremony. Do-yoon eats with his left hand because his right arm is still a dead weight bound against his ribs. He's been ignoring it all day. Now, in the firelight, the pain settles in. Not sharp, just deep. A bone ache that won't quit. When did you know? Do-yoon's voice is quiet. That you had to leave the epic. That you couldn't stay. No, choose slowly. When I stopped recognizing my own face in the mirror. When I realized I'd stolen so much time from other people that I couldn't remember what my own heartbeat felt like. When I looked at a child, and my first thought was how many years she had left. He sets down his bowl. The Hidden Epoch isn't a cult. It's a machine. It takes people who are hungry, or scared, or desperate, and it teaches them to see other human beings as batteries. Once you start thinking that way, it's very hard to stop. Most operatives never do. How did you stop? I met someone who refused to steal. A blind woman who could see time, but wouldn't touch it. She told me I was a thief dressed up as a scientist. She was right. I left the next day. Do-yoon stares into the fire. The flames flicker. The after images have faded completely now. For the first time since the bunker, his vision is clear. Hyo was right about the addiction. His voice cracks on the name. Every time I steal, I want more. It's like, there's a hunger in my left hand that doesn't shut up. The only time it's quiet is when I'm using it. And then the quiet ends, and the hunger comes back louder. That's the trap. The hunger never goes away. You just get better at ignoring it. Or you give in and become like Kang Hyun-woo. Who's Kang Hyun-woo? A time thief who's been hoarding stolen years for 3 decades. He's killed more people than the Hidden Epoch's entire soul cell combined. He doesn't work for them. He doesn't work for anyone. He's just hungry, and one day, probably soon, he's going to come looking for you. Not because the Hidden Epoch sent him, because he wants what you have. Do-yoon's left hand twitches. He can't steal from me. The rule says, Kang doesn't want to steal from you. He wants to kill you and take the years you've already stolen. He's figured out a way to extract accumulated time from a corpse. He's the reason the Hidden Epoch is so desperate to recruit you. They want you as a weapon against him. The fire pops. A spark floats up into the dark. How do you know all this? Because I've been tracking Kang for 2 years. Because I know Seo isn't just watching you for recruitment, she's also watching for him. Because the Hidden Epoch is terrified of what happens if Kang gets to you first. Do-yoon sets down his bowl. So I'm bait. You're leverage. In a war that's been going on for decades between a cult that wants to consume all time and a monster who wants to hoard it. And right now, you're the only piece on the board that both sides are afraid of. The warm hand. The fast hand. The hand that killed his teacher by accident. Then we'd better make sure I'm ready. No almost smiles. That's the first smart thing you've said all day. The fire burns down to embers. The waterfall roars in the dark. Somewhere in the city below the mountain, a man with 30 years of stolen time in his veins opens his eyes and begins walking toward the trailhead. Do-yoon and No leave the waterfall at dawn before the sun clears the ridge. No's pack is heavier than it was on the way up. Extra rice. Dried fish. A coil of rope he didn't have before. Do-yoon's right arm is still strapped against his ribs. Dead weight. He's stopped hoping it'll wake up. They walk the mountain path in silence for 3 hours. The air thins. The trees give way to bare rock and low scrub. No stops at a trail marker nobody else would notice. Just a stack of 3 flat stones with a 4th stone balanced on top. He adjusts the top stone half an inch to the left. The air shimmers. The trail ahead stops being a goat path and becomes a staircase cut into the cliffside. Guess what? Do-yoon doesn't even look surprised anymore. He just follows No up the steps. 1 foot after the other. His left hand is warm again, but he's not thinking about it. The staircase ends at a wide stone platform, jutting out over a valley that shouldn't exist. A river of silver mist fills the valley below. Not water. Un-woo. No says it's the breath of everyone who's trained on this mountain for the last 400 years. The platform is empty. No temple. No hut. No wise old man sitting cross-legged in the middle. Just bare stone and the mist and the sound of wind that doesn't move a single hair on Do-yoon's head. No tells him Master Ryu will appear when the trials are finished. Do-yoon asks what trials. The ground drops out from under him. Not metaphorically. The stone platform splits clean down the middle, and Do-yoon falls 20 feet before his left hand catches a ledge. His right arm screams against the strap. His fingers slip on wet stone. No's voice comes from somewhere above. Calm, almost bored. You have 24 hours you didn't earn inside your bones. Spend 1 second of it and climb. The ledge starts to crumble. Do-yoon closes his eyes, feels the stolen decades swirling in his chest like cold smoke. He reaches for the smallest piece he can find. Not a year, not a month. 1 second. One single tick of a clock he stole from Gangchul, what feels like a lifetime ago. He pushes it into his legs. The world doesn't slow down. He doesn't get faster, but the next handhold is suddenly right there. His fingers close around it. His feet find a crevice that wasn't visible a moment ago. He spends another second and pulls. He spends a third and his knee finds a shelf. He spends 5 more and drags himself over the lip of the platform. The split in the stone seals behind him without a sound. No is standing exactly where he was, arms crossed. How much did you spend? 8 seconds. No almost smiles. Most students spend a year on that climb. Some spend 5. One idiot spent 20 and still fell. Do-yoon lies on his back, breathing hard. His left hand tingles, but the hunger is quiet. Spending seconds one at a time feels different from stealing years in a panic. Lighter. Cleaner. He doesn't have time to think about it because the platform starts moving. A whole slab of stone slides forward into the mist like a ferry leaving a dock. Do-yoon scrambles to his knees. No doesn't move at all. They drift through the silver river of time mist, and Do-yoon can feel it pressing against his skin. Old breath. Old moments. A child's laugh that happened 200 years ago. A scream from a battle that hasn't been fought yet. The platform stops at a narrow stone bridge, spanning a gap so deep the bottom is just black. The bridge has no railings. The stones are cracked and loose. Something is wrong with the way the mist moves under it. It swirls backwards, spins counterclockwise, drags at the edges of Do-yoon's vision. No steps off the platform onto solid ground. This one I can't help you with. The bridge collapses at different speeds for different people. You have to find the rhythm and move through it. Use too much stolen time, and the bridge will sense it. Use too little, and you won't make it across before it falls. You've done this. I crossed it 30 years ago. It took me 11 seconds of my own life and 3 stolen years I still regret spending. Do-yoon looks at the bridge. The first stone cracks under his stare. He steps onto it anyway. The bridge shudders. Stones start dropping into the black. Not fast, not slow, wrong speed. They fall like feathers and hit like boulders, and the sound reaches Do-yoon's ears before the stones actually move. The whole bridge is out of sync with itself. Do-yoon takes a breath and lets his body feel the rhythm underneath the wrongness. Not his stolen time, not his speed, the bridge's own pulse. A stone drops. Do-yoon steps into the space it left. Another cracks. He steps. Another. He steps. He's not spending seconds now. He's spending fractions. Splinters of stolen moments, so small they barely register as theft. The bridge falls faster. He steps faster. His left hand twitches, but he doesn't grab. His right arm bounces useless against his chest, but he keeps his balance. The last 5 stones go all at once. Do-yoon jumps. He spends half a second, just enough to clear the gap, just enough to land on the far side with both feet on solid rock. The bridge is gone behind him, nothing but black and spinning mist. No is waiting. How much? 4 seconds and a half. No's eyebrows go up. That's the biggest reaction Do-yoon has ever seen from him. You're the first person in 40 years to cross that bridge for less than a minute. Most burn a decade just to keep the stones from falling. The platform is waiting on this side too, or a different platform, it's hard to tell. They step onto it, and the stone ferry drifts deeper into the mist. The third trial doesn't announce itself. One moment Do-yoon is standing on the platform, watching the silver river flow past. Next moment, there's a boulder the size of a truck falling straight toward his head. He doesn't think. He spends a second and dives left. The boulder clips his shoulder, spins him. He hits the stone floor hard, and his dead right arm folds under him, and the pain is a white sheet of nothing for 3 full heartbeats. No watches from the corner of the platform. His hands are in his pockets. The boulder rises back into the mist. It never hit the ground. It just reversed direction and vanished upward. That one resets every 30 seconds, No says. It'll get faster each time. Can't dodge it forever. You have to find another way. Do-yoon gets to his knees. His shoulder throbs. His left hand is clenched so tight the knuckles are white. He could steal years from the boulder, but it's a rock. Rocks don't have time. He could burn stolen years and outrun it. But the bridge already taught him that burning too much makes the trial harder. The mist swirls around the platform. And Do-yoon notices something he missed before. The boulder doesn't move through time the same way everything else does. It's not falling, it's repeating. The same half-second loop over and over. Every 30 seconds, the loop resets and the rock drops from the same height at the same angle. It's not a boulder. It's a memory of a boulder. A moment of impact carved out of someone else's disaster and set on repeat. The boulder drops again. Do-yoon doesn't move. He looks at the exact spot where the rock will hit, and he pushes 1 second of stolen time into that spot. Not his own life, his own. The second expands. The boulder hits the expanded moment and stops dead. Hangs in the air like a photograph. Then it shrinks, folds, compresses into a pebble the size of a thumbnail, and clinks onto the stone at Do-yoon's feet. The mist goes quiet. No pulls his hands out of his pockets. You just gave away a second of stolen time. I know. You have less than a year left. I know. No stares at him for a long moment. Then he nods. That's the first time anyone has solved that trial without stealing anything. Master Ryu will want to hear about this. The platform stops moving. They've reached the far end of the valley. A single stone hut sits on a ledge overlooking the river of mist. The door is open. A thin ribbon of smoke rises from a chimney that looks like it hasn't been cleaned in a century. Inside the hut is one room, a fire pit, a straw mat, a low wooden table with a single cup of tea that's still steaming. Master Ryu is smaller than Do-yoon expected. Old woman, maybe 90, maybe 300. Her hair is pulled back in a tight knot, and her hands are covered in ink stains. She doesn't look up when they enter. She's writing something in a ledger so thick, the spine is reinforced with iron bands. No bows. Deeper than Do-yoon has ever seen him bow to anyone. This is the one I told you about. He crossed the bridge for 4.5 seconds and broke the falling rock with his own lifespan. Ryu sets down her brush, looks at Do-yoon. Her eyes are the color of old silver. You have 10 years in your bones that aren't yours. Most of it stolen from a man named Gang Chol in a pit, some from a fighter named Yoon Myung-soo, the rest from 3 agents in a bunker under a textile mill. She pauses. And you're holding it all wrong. Do-yoon's left hand twitches. No taught me how to spend it, a second at a time. Precision instead of panic. Good. That's the first lesson. The second lesson is harder. What's the second lesson? Ryu picks up her brush, dips it in ink, writes a single character on a scrap of paper, and slides it across the table. You have to stop thinking of time as something you can hold. You don't carry 10 years inside you like coins in a purse. You're carrying 10 years of momentum. Direction. Weight. Every second you stole has a story, a person, a moment that belonged to someone else, and all of it is pulling you toward the same place. Do-yoon looks at the character. He can't read it. That's the word for river, Ryu says. Time doesn't sit still. It flows. When you steal it, you dam the river. The pressure builds. Eventually, the dam breaks. That's what happened in the bunker. That's what will happen again every time you steal too much in one place. I didn't know there was a limit. There isn't a limit to how much you can steal. There's a limit to how much you can carry before the river starts carrying you instead. She gestures at the mat. Do-yoon sits. No stays standing by the door. You came here to learn how to fight. But fighting with stolen time is like fighting with a sword made of glass. It cuts. It also shatters. The only way to survive is to stop carrying the river and start swimming in it. Do-yoon stares at the scrap of paper. How? You've been taught to spend seconds one at a time. That's the beginning. Now you have to learn to feel the flow before you touch it. To know where the river is going before you step into it. Most fighters steal time and react faster. That's not skill. That's just theft with extra steps. Ryu stands, walks to the door, beckons him to follow. Outside the hut, the mist is thicker than before. It rises to their waists, swirls around their legs like a slow current. Ryu kneels and dips her hand into the mist. This is the breath of everyone who's trained here. Seojin, leftover moments. It doesn't belong to anyone anymore. It's just flowing. She pulls her hand out. A single drop of silver clings to her fingertip. Feel the flow. Don't grab. Don't steal. Just feel. Do-yoon kneels, plunges his left hand into the mist. The cold hits first. Then the noise. Thousand moments, all sliding past each other. Laughter and screams and whispers and footsteps and heartbeats and the sound of a sword being sharpened 400 years ago by a man who died. Before Do-yoon's grandfather was born, he wants to grab. The hunger in his palm wakes up and starts screaming. He doesn't grab. He lets the moments flow through his fingers. Doesn't try to hold them. Doesn't try to sort them. Just feels the current and the weight and the direction. The hunger screams louder. His hand shakes. And then something shifts. The noise doesn't go away, but it stops being noise. It becomes a rhythm. A pulse. A single heartbeat spread across 4 centuries of training and pain and victory and failure. He can feel where the river is going. Not because he's predicting it, because he's inside it. Ryu watches his face. Good. Now stand up. Do-yoon stands. His left hand is dripping silver. The hunger in his palm is quieter than it's been since the night he first stole Gangchol's years. You'll spend the next 3 days here, Ryu says. No food, no sleep. Just standing in the mist until you can feel the flow without putting your hand in it. Until you can tell where time is going before it gets there. And after that you'll spar with no. And you'll lose. Over and over. Because feeling the flow isn't the same as fighting inside it. But by the end of the week, you'll be able to spend a single second in the middle of combat without stealing anything. You'll move with the current instead of against it. And when Kang Hyun-woo comes looking for you, she turns back toward the hut. You'll be something he doesn't know how to fight. No steps forward. Puts a hand on Do-yoon's shoulder. I'll bring water every 6 hours. Nothing else. The hunger is going to get loud. Ignore it. Do-yoon nods. His left hand is still. The mist curls around his ankles. He doesn't know what 3 days of standing in a river of dead moments will do to him. He doesn't know if he'll come out stronger or just colder. But Haeyo's ghost is quiet. The after images are gone. And somewhere down in the city, Kang Hyun-woo is walking toward a trailhead with 30 years of stolen time in his veins. So Do-yoon closes his eyes, feels the flow, and starts learning. The mist clears at dawn on the 3rd day. Do-yoon opens his eyes, and he doesn't need to put his hand in the flow anymore. He can feel it standing up, breathing, just existing. The river is inside him now. Or maybe he's inside the river. Hard to tell the difference after 72 hours without sleep and nothing but water every 6 hours. No is waiting at the edge of the stone platform with a dry towel and a bowl of rice. He takes one look at Do-yoon's face and nods. Good, eat. Then we spar. Do-yoon eats. The rice tastes like nothing. His left hand is steady. His right arm is still dead weight strapped against his ribs. The hunger in his palm is a low purr instead of a scream. Something has changed. He doesn't know what yet. No attacks without warning the moment Do-yoon steps onto the sparring ground. A fist aimed at his throat. Do-yoon moves. Not fast. Not stealing anything. Just sideways. The fist passes through empty air. No smiles. Again. They spar for 6 hours. Do-yoon loses every single exchange. His face is bruised. His ribs ache. His dead right arm gets knocked against a rock, and he nearly blacks out from the pain. But he doesn't steal. Not once. He feels the current before No throws a punch, before the muscle tenses, before the thought even forms in No's head. He loses because feeling it and responding to it are 2 different things. But by the end of the 6th hour, he's losing slower. No calls it. You're ready. Master Ryu has something to show you. Master Ryu is waiting in the hut. She has a small radio on the low table. The radio is on. A voice crackles through the static. A voice Do-yoon doesn't recognize. Young, calm, almost bored. The voice says, "My name is Kang Hyun-woo. I'm standing in Gwanghwamun Square right now. In about 60 seconds, I'm going to create a time storm that freezes every man, woman, and child within a 3-kilometer radius. I'd like to apologize in advance for the inconvenience. This isn't about any of you. This is about Jang Do-yoon. You have 12 hours to meet me here. If you don't show up, I'll widen the storm. Slowly. Street by street, until there's nothing left of this city but a museum of frozen moments. Your choice." The radio goes silent. Master Ryu turns it off. He's been broadcasting that on every frequency for the last 20 minutes. The whole city is panicking. The police can't get near the square. Anyone who steps inside the perimeter freezes mid-step. He's not bluffing. Do-yoon stares at the radio. 30 years of stolen time. That's what No said. 30 years minimum. Maybe more by now. He's been busy since you first sensed him. Can I beat him? Master Ryu doesn't answer right away. She pours herself a cup of cold tea and drinks it slowly. He doesn't want to fight you, Do-yoon. He wants to test you. The broadcast, the storm, the 12-hour deadline. This is a stage. He's building an audience. He wants the Hidden Epoch watching. He wants the whole underground watching. This is a job interview. For what? For whatever comes after. Do-yoon stands up. His legs are still shaky from 3 days of standing in the mist and 6 hours of losing to No. His right arm hangs useless and dead. His left hand hums with the river. I'm going. No steps forward. I'll come with you. No, he asked for me. If you show up, he might widen the storm early. Stay here. If I don't come back in 12 hours, tell Heo's ghost I said sorry. No opens his mouth to argue. Master Ryu puts a hand on his arm. He's ready, let him go. Do-yoon walks down the mountain alone. His right arm bounces against his chest with every step. The trail is empty. The forest is silent. The birds have stopped singing. Even the wind feels wrong, like the whole world is holding its breath. The train station is chaos when he arrives. People are running in every direction. A woman is crying into her phone. A man is shouting at a ticket agent who isn't there anymore. 3 teenagers are filming themselves with shaking hands, narrating the apocalypse for their followers. Do-yoon buys a ticket with the last of his cash. The train is empty. Nobody is heading toward the frozen zone. The conductor looks at him like he's insane. Do-yoon sits by the window and watches the city smear past. His left hand is completely still. His heartbeat is slow and regular. The river is flowing, and he is floating in it. And for the first time since the night he grabbed Gang Chol's arm, he feels almost calm. Gwanghwamun Square is inside a dome of silver light. That's the first thing Do-yoon sees when the train pulls into the station 4 blocks away. Shimmering hemisphere that rises 50 stories high and pulses like a heartbeat. Inside the dome, nothing moves. Cars are frozen in the street with their headlights on, and their drivers reaching for their phones. A pigeon is suspended 10 feet above a fountain, wings spread, beak open. A child is caught mid-run with a balloon trailing behind her. The string frozen in a perfect S-curve. The balloon isn't moving. The child isn't breathing. Everything inside the dome is a photograph. Do-yoon walks toward the edge of the storm. The air gets thicker with every step. His ears pop. His left hand starts tingling. The hunger in his palm wakes up and starts pacing like a caged animal. He pushes it down. At the edge of the dome, a police officer is arguing with a man in a suit. The officer says the military is coming. The man in the suit says the military can't do anything against this. They both shut up when Do-yoon walks past them and steps into the silver light. The dome doesn't resist him. It parts like water. Inside, the silence is absolute. No wind, no traffic, no heartbeats except his own. The frozen people are warm to the touch. Alive, just paused. Their time stolen down to a single frame per second, stretched so thin it takes a full minute for a blink to complete. Do-yoon walks through the frozen crowd toward the center of the square. A massive statue of Admiral Yi Sun-sin dominates the plaza. Kang Hyun-woo is sitting on the statue's head, legs dangling, eating an apple. He's young. Younger than Do-yoon expected. Maybe 22. Black hair, sharp cheekbones, a grin that doesn't reach his eyes. He's wearing a plain gray hoodie and jeans. No armor, no weapons. Nothing that says he's holding 30 years of stolen time in his veins. Except his eyes. His eyes are silver, not the iris, the whole eye, pupil and sclera and everything. A uniform metallic gray, like polished knives. He sees Do-yoon approach, and his grin widens. You came. I was starting to worry. 12 hours is a long time to sit on a statue eating apples. These are terrible apples, by the way. Tasteless. Like eating wet cardboard. Do-yoon stops 10 meters from the base of the statue. Let them go. Kang takes another bite of the apple. Or what? You'll steal my time. Here's the thing, Do-yoon. I have 34 years of stolen time in my system. You have what? Maybe 10? 11? Most of it from low-level thugs who didn't even know what they were losing. You've never fought someone who knows how to fight back. This isn't going to go the way you think. Probably not. Then why are you here? Because you called. And because I want to know what the Hidden Epoch is really building. Kang's grin fades. For a split second, something flickers across his face. Something that looks almost like respect. Then he throws the apple core into the frozen fountain and drops off the statue. He falls 60 feet and lands without a sound, knees slightly bent, hands in his pockets. Okay, but first, let's see if you're worth telling. He moves. Do-yoon feels the current shift half a second before Kang disappears. Not teleportation, speed, pure, savage. 34 years of stolen moment speed. Do-yoon ducks left. Kang's fist passes through the space where his head was, and the air cracks like a whip. Good. You felt that. Most people don't feel it. Kang circles him. His feet don't touch the ground. He's walking on a thin layer of compacted time. a disk of frozen moments spinning under his heel. But feeling isn't the same as keeping up. He attacks again. A kick to the ribs, a palm strike to the throat, an elbow aimed at the temple. 3 separate attacks, 0 delay between them. Do-yoon blocks the kick with his left forearm, and the impact sends a shockwave through his dead right arm that almost makes him vomit. He dodges the palm strike by dropping to one knee, and then rolls sideways to avoid the elbow. The roll is clumsy and slow, and Kang is already behind him when he comes up. A hand closes around the back of his neck. Too slow. Thinking about every move. That's death against someone like me. You have to stop thinking. Kang throws him. Do-yoon crashes through a frozen hot dog cart and skids across the cobblestones and comes to a stop against a frozen businessman whose tie is caught. Mid-flap in a breeze that stopped an hour ago. His ribs are broken. He's pretty sure at least 2 of them. His dead right arm is screaming. His left hand is still steady. He pushes himself up. Kang is watching him from 20 meters away, hands back in his pockets. You're tough, I'll give you that. But tough doesn't win fights. What else do you have? Do-yoon doesn't answer. He stops thinking. He lets the river carry him. Kang attacks again, and this time, Do-yoon doesn't try to predict anything. He feels the current, and he moves with it, and his body just does what the river tells it to do. Kang's fist misses by an inch, and Do-yoon's left hand closes around his wrist. The hunger in his palm opens its mouth, and finds nothing. Kang grins. Nice try, but you can't steal from me. His wrist slips out of Do-yoon's grip like it was greased. I've already stolen from myself 3 times tonight just to test the limits. Every second in my system has been grafted, regrafted, and locked down with more seals than a bank vault. You can't take what's already been taken. Basic rule. Maybe your teacher forgot to mention it. Kang's knee comes up into Do-yoon's stomach. The air leaves his lungs. He doubles over, and a second knee catches him in the chin, and he flips backward and hits the ground hard. The sky is silver. The frozen faces of 1,000 people stare down at him from the edges of the dome. Somewhere outside the storm, a military helicopter is hovering, its rotor blades frozen mid-turn. Kang stands over him. Get up. You're not done. Do-yoon gets up. His ribs are definitely broken. His vision is blurry. His dead right arm is a weight, dragging him down and to the left. His left hand is empty. No stolen time. No theft. Just his own 11 months of borrowed life, and a river he can feel but can't touch. And then he understands. Master Ryu's voice echoes in his head. You've been taught to spend seconds one at a time. That's the beginning. Now you have to learn to feel the flow before you touch it. He hasn't been doing that. He's been trying to react, trying to keep up, trying to match Kang's speed with his own speed, which is impossible because Kang has 3 times as much stolen time. But speed isn't the point. Predicting is the point. Not reacting. Not keeping up. Knowing where the river is going before it gets there. Do-yoon closes his eyes. Kang laughs. Giving up? That's disappointing. I expected more from the guy who broke an auction house and survived a time rupture. Do-yoon doesn't answer. He sinks into the flow. Not the flow of his own stolen time, the flow of everything. The river that runs under the world. The current that carries every moment from past to future. The pulse that's been beating since before the mountain was a mountain and will keep beating long after both of them are dust. He can feel Kang's next move. Not guess it. Feel it. A feint to the left, then a straight kick to the sternum, then a spinning elbow to the jaw. 3 moves, 0 delay, executed in less than 1/10 of a second. Do-yoon steps right before the feint starts. Kang's kick passes through empty air. Do-yoon is already ducking when the elbow comes. He's not faster than Kang. He's earlier. Half a second earlier for every move, every strike, every attack. Kang throws 23 blows in the space of 3 seconds, and Do-yoon is already somewhere else for all of them. Not dodging, just not being there. Kang stops. His silver eyes narrow. What is that? That's not time theft. What are you doing? Nothing. I'm not doing anything. I'm just letting the river carry me. Kang stares at him for a long moment. Then he laughs. Not the sharp, mocking laugh from before. A real laugh. Surprised and almost delighted. You learned stillness. From the old woman on the mountain. I heard rumors about her, but I didn't think anyone actually survived her training. You stood in the mist for 3 days, and you came out the other side. That's not supposed to be possible. He steps back. The silver dome flickers. The frozen pigeon twitches a wing. The storm is weakening. Kang holds up both hands, palms out. I'm done. The test is over. What test? The test to see if you're worth saving. You passed. Congratulations. He sits down on the edge of the fountain and gestures for Do-yoon to sit next to him. Do-yoon doesn't sit. His ribs are screaming, and his left hand is starting to shake now that the adrenaline is fading, and he has no idea what just happened. Explain, now, or I swear I'll throw you into your own storm. Kang sighs. Fine, short version. The Hidden Epoch isn't what you think. They're not harvesting time to become immortal. That's the cover story they tell the rank and file. The real plan is bigger and a lot more stupid. They want to build a time singularity, a single point in space-time where all stolen years converge. Once it's active, they can erase any moment from history, any person, any event, any civilization. They can prune the timeline like a bonsai tree. And Kwon Song-ryol, their leader, their god, whatever you want to call him, he's the only one who can control the singularity. He's been stealing time for centuries, from entire dimensions, not just individual people. He doesn't want to live forever. He wants to decide who gets to have ever lived at all. Do-yoon goes cold. The river in his head goes quiet. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm not one of them. Not anymore. I was. I spent 6 years as an Epoch operative. I stole time from 53 people. I was good at it. The best, actually, until you showed up. But last month, I found out what they were really building, and I ran. Now they're hunting me, same as they're hunting you. Only difference is, I have 34 years of stolen time and a death wish. You have 11 months of borrowed life, and apparently the ability to predict my every move by standing still. Between the two of us, we might actually be able to slow them down. Slow them down how? By destroying the singularity before it activates. There's a facility under Mount Bukhan. Old military bunker, repurposed about 20 years ago. That's where they're assembling the core. I know the layout. I know the guard rotations. I even know a way in through the ventilation system. What I don't have is someone who can fight beside me without getting killed in the first 30 seconds. He looks at Do-yoon. Silver is fading from his eyes, revealing ordinary brown irises underneath. You're not fast enough to beat Kwon. Neither am I. Not alone. But together, with your river sense and my stolen decades, we might have a chance. A small chance. Maybe 5%. But it's better than 0. Do-yoon thinks about Heo, about the dust on the dojo floor, about No standing in the waterfall, telling him guilt is a teacher, not a debt. About 11 months ticking down in his veins, and a right arm that will never move again. Okay, but I have conditions. Name them. First, you let everyone in this dome go, right now. Second, you help me find a way to stop the epic without becoming like them. No more harvesting. No more stealing from people who don't know what they're losing. We fight clean, or we don't fight at all. Kang considers this. Then he snaps his fingers. The silver dome shatters. The pigeon completes its wing beat. The child catches her balloon. Frozen drivers blink and look around and nearly crash their cars. 1,000 people resume their lives without knowing they were ever paused. Sirens start wailing in the distance. Kang stands up and offers Do-yoon his hand. Deal. But we should probably leave before the military shows up. I don't think either of us wants to explain any of this to a general. Do-yoon doesn't take his hand, but he follows him. Through the back alleys behind the square, past the panicking crowds, toward an old subway entrance that hasn't been used in 20 years. Kang is faster than him, stronger, more experienced, but Do-yoon is the one who can feel the river. And as they descend into the dark, his left hand finally stops shaking. Not because the hunger is gone, because for the first time since that night in the pit, he knows exactly what he's hunting. No walks into the storm. He doesn't run or shout or throw a punch. He just walks, hands at his sides, breath rising white in the frozen air, like a man stepping into his own living room. The silver dome is still flickering from Kang's withdrawal, but the time storm isn't done. Frozen bodies are twitching. A businessman's tie is snapping back and forth between still and windblown. The hot dog cart is vibrating half an inch off the ground. The whole 3-kilometer bubble is destabilizing, and when it goes, it won't go gently. No stops at the exact center of Gwanghwamun Square. He kneels, places both palms flat against the pavement, and then he breathes. Not a normal breath, a breath that takes exactly 4 seconds in and 4 seconds out. And the moment the air leaves his lungs, something shifts. The silver light around him begins to rotate, slow at first, like water circling a drain, then faster, a cyclone of frozen time spinning counterclockwise above his head. The eye opens, a space of maybe 15 feet across, where the storm simply doesn't exist. The businessman's tie drops limp. The hot dog cart settles back onto its wheels. A pigeon that was caught mid-flap completes its wing beat and lands on the statue of Admiral Yi. No doesn't move. His arms are trembling now, the veins on his forearms standing out like cords. But his breathing stays steady. Whatever he's doing, it's costing him. Do-yoon watches from 20 feet away, one hand pressed against his broken ribs. No's power was never explained to him. He knows the man can seal ruptures and untangle stolen decades, and now apparently anchor an entire time storm to a single point. But the how is a mystery. Right now, the how doesn't matter. What matters is that the eye is holding, and the frozen city around it is stabilizing. And Kang's exit didn't kill everyone inside the dome. No lifts his head, face slick with sweat despite the cold. His voice is hoarse, like he's been screaming for hours. The storm has a source. It's not Kang. He triggered it, but he's not fueling it. There's a crystal somewhere in the city. A containment node. Hidden Epoch uses them to store excess stolen time. Find it, shatter it. I'll keep the eye open as long as I can. Do-yoon doesn't ask how long that is. He doesn't ask what happens if No fails. He just turns and walks into the wall of silver. The frozen world swallows him. Past the edge of the eye, time stops making sense. Do-yoon walks past a child whose balloon has floated 6 inches from her hand in the last 40 minutes. Past a delivery truck whose driver is frozen mid-blink. Past a street vendor whose ladle hovers over a pot of tteokbokki, the steam frozen into solid white curls. Everything is still. Everything is silent. But not empty. Do-yoon can feel it now. The current No taught him to sense under the waterfall, the river Master Ryu showed him in the mist. The storm isn't random chaos. It's flowing. Every frozen second is being pulled toward something, like water draining toward a hidden hole. He follows the pull, left down an alley behind a shuttered bank, right past a bus stop where 4 people are frozen reaching for their phones, straight through a crosswalk where a taxi's bumper is an inch from a bicycle messenger's leg. The pull gets stronger, not the hunger, something else. The stolen time in his bones is resonating with whatever is at the center of this thing. And then he sees it. A manhole cover. Ordinary iron, set into the asphalt of a side street behind Gyeongbokgung Station. But it's glowing. A faint silver outline, pulsing in rhythm with the dome overhead. Do-yoon drops to one knee and works his fingers into the gap. His right arm is useless, dead weight against his ribs, but his left is still strong. And the cover comes up with a screech of frozen metal. Below it, a ladder drops into darkness. He descends. Tunnel at the bottom is old sewer infrastructure. Brick walls slick with decades of moisture. But someone has retrofitted it. Modern LED strips run along the ceiling, casting pale blue light across a concrete floor that's too clean to be municipal. The pull is stronger down here, a steady thrum in his chest like a second heartbeat. He follows it for maybe 300 yards, and then he finds the door. Steel, set into the brick, with no handle and no lock. Just a single symbol etched into the metal. The Hidden Epoch's mark. Do-yoon puts his left palm flat against the door and pushes. Nothing. He pushes harder, bracing his feet against the concrete, and the door doesn't budge, doesn't even rattle. And that's when he feels it. The door isn't locked, it's frozen. The entire slab of steel is trapped in a single instant of time. A loop so tight that no force in the physical world can move it forward. Standard breach won't work. Brute force is useless. But Do-yoon isn't carrying a battering ram. He's carrying decades of stolen time. He places his palm against the door and closes his eyes. He finds the seam. Every frozen thing has one. The place where stolen time meets real time. The crack where the construct is weakest. He learned this at the auction house, pushing a second of his own life into a bubble's edge to shatter it. Same principle, different scale. He doesn't push a second this time. He pushes a single heartbeat, his own heartbeat. One beat out of his shortened life. One beat of unfiltered present moment. He gives it to the door's seam. The steel shudders. The symbol flares silver, then cracks down the middle. And the door swings inward with a groan like a wounded animal. Do-yoon walks through. The room beyond is a basement, maybe 40 feet square, carved out of the bedrock beneath Seoul. The walls are lined with shelves. On the shelves are crystals, dozens of them. Each one is maybe the size of a fist, hexagonal, faintly glowing, mounted in brass cradles that hum with contained time. The air in here is thick. Breathing it feels like breathing syrup. And in the center of the room, on a pedestal of black stone, is the crystal. It's bigger than the others, maybe the size of a human head, cut into a perfect sphere, and it's pulsing. Every pulse sends a ripple through the air, through the floor, through Do-yoon's bones. This is the source. This is what's fueling the storm above. And it's guarded. 3 figures step out from behind the shelves. They're wearing the same dark uniforms as the agents in the textile mill bunker, but these 3 aren't carrying weapons. They don't need to. The one on the left raises a hand, and Do-yoon feels time warp around his legs. His calves lock, his knees seize. He can't move below the waist. The one on the right raises both hands, and the air between them solidifies into a wall of frozen seconds. A barrier of crystallized time pushing toward Do-yoon's chest. The one in the center just watches. He's older than the others, gray at the temples, with the same silver eyes Kang had before he dropped his dome. "You're the thief," the center one says, not a question. The one who broke the auction. The one who triggered the rupture at Facility 7. The one who bested Kang Hyun-woo. Impressive resume. Shame it ends here. Do-yoon doesn't answer. He's too busy feeling. The trap on his legs is a time loop, a repeating quarter second that keeps his lower body frozen in place. The wall approaching his chest is a compression field. 3 months of stolen time packed into a battering ram. Standard time thief tricks. He's seen worse. He's felt worse. He rode a collapsing bridge and stopped a looping boulder and sat under a waterfall for 4 minutes without losing control. These 3 are operating on a level he passed 2 trials ago. He reaches into the stolen time pooled in his bones. Not the full decades, just a trickle. A single second drawn from the year he took off Gangchul in the pit. He pushes it downward, into his frozen legs. Not to break the loop, but to overload it. Every time construct has a capacity. Every loop can only hold so much. He feeds it a second of raw present, and the loop chokes. His legs unlock. He steps sideways, not fast, not panicked. Just one clean sidestep as the wall of compressed time rushes past his left shoulder and slams into the shelf behind him. Crystals shatter. Stolen years spray into the air like broken glass. The older agent's eyes go wide. What did you just... Do-yoon moves. Not Kang fast, not decades of theft fast, just efficient. He closes the distance to the agent on the left in 3 steps, grabs the man's wrist, and takes. Not decades, not years. 1 month. A single heartbeat's worth of theft, clean and surgical. And the agent gasps as the color drains from his hair and his knees buckle, and he drops unconscious to the floor. The one on the right is already forming another wall, but Do-yoon doesn't give him time to finish. He vaults over a shelf, lands behind the agent, touches the back of his neck. 1 month. Snap. 2 agents down, gray-haired and unconscious, decades older than they were 30 seconds ago. The older one in the center hasn't moved. He's watching Do-yoon with something that looks almost like respect. You're not stealing decades, you're taking months. Why? Because I don't need decades. That's not an answer. It's the only answer that matters. The older agent nods slowly. Then he reaches into his coat and pulls out a small brass cylinder. Do-yoon recognizes the design. Same as the control device at the auction. Same as the trigger mechanism at Facility 7. Emergency failsafe. If he activates it, the crystal overloads. Not a rupture, a detonation. Every stolen second in that sphere, released at once, inside a city that's already frozen on the edge of a time storm. Do you know what happens if I press this? The agent asks. Tell me. The crystal contains 63 years of harvested time. It's a containment node, one of 7 that feed the Hidden Epoch's primary facility. If it detonates, the storm above doesn't collapse. It accelerates. The frozen city doesn't thaw. It erases. Every man, woman, and child in a 3-kilometer radius simply never existed. They won't die. They'll be pruned from the timeline, like they were never born. And you, the thief who stopped Kang Hyun-woo, will be the one who made it happen. Do-yoon looks at the cylinder, then at the crystal pulsing on its pedestal, then back at the agent. Why haven't you pressed it? Because I don't want to. I'm not a zealot. I'm a researcher. I've spent 20 years studying how stolen time behaves under containment. I know exactly what this crystal can do, and I know exactly what happens if it breaks. I'm giving you a choice. Walk away. Let the storm stabilize on its own. The frozen people will thaw. The city will recover. And you and I both live to fight another day. Or try to shatter the crystal and risk erasing 500,000 people because you couldn't let go of the idea that you have to break everything the epic touches. Do-yoon thinks about no. Kneeling in the square, holding the eye open with nothing but will and breathing, and whatever mysterious power lets him anchor a time storm to a single point. He thinks about Heo, crumbling to dust on the dojo floor because Do-yoon's power activated without permission. He thinks about the 11 months ticking down in his veins, and the dead arm strapped against his ribs, and the river that Master Ryu taught him to feel. "You're wrong," Do-yoon says. "About what?" "About the crystal breaking. You think the only two options are walk away or detonate. There's a third option." "And what's that?" "I shatter it without releasing the time." The agent laughs. It's not a cruel laugh, not mocking, just the exhausted laugh of a man who has spent 2 decades studying the thing this kid is claiming to do. "You can't. The crystal is a containment sphere. The only way to break containment is to release what's inside. That's physics. That's temporal mechanics. That's the fundamental rule of how stolen time behaves. You can't just wish it away." Do-yoon walks toward the pedestal. The agent lifts the cylinder, thumb hovering over the trigger. "One more step and I press it. I'm not bluffing. I genuinely do not want to, but I will." "No, you won't." "What makes you so sure?" "Because you said you're a researcher. You've spent 20 years studying stolen time. You said you know exactly what this crystal can do. But you don't know what I can do. And a researcher doesn't destroy his subject before he understands it." The agent's thumb hesitates. That's all Do-yoon needs. He doesn't lunge for the cylinder. He doesn't try to steal the agent's time. He steps past the man, right up to the pedestal, and places his left palm flat against the crystal's surface. It's warm, pulsing, alive with 63 years of stolen moments. He closes his eyes. He feels the river. Not the river of his own stolen time, the river of this crystal, the flow of 63 years all trying to move in different directions at once. Every year was taken from a different person. Every stolen moment has its own rhythm, its own pulse, its own memory of the life it was torn from. The crystal is holding them together by force. Containment. Compression. A dam built across 100 different streams. He can't break the dam without releasing the water. The agent is right about that. But Do-yoon isn't trying to break the dam. He's trying to unbuild it. No taught him this in the waterfall. Not how to destroy stolen time, how to let it go. He finds the seams. Not one seam, hundreds of them, thousands. The places where one stolen moment is pressed against another. He pushes a second of his own life into the first seam. His lifespan drops. Less than a year now, closer to 10 months, but he doesn't stop. The seam softens. The stolen moment inside it stops fighting. He moves to the next seam, and the next. The agent is saying something behind him, shouting maybe, but Do-yoon can't hear him anymore. All he can hear is the river. All he can feel is the flow. 63 years of stolen time, and he touches every single seam, every point of forced connection, and he gives each one a single heartbeat of his own life. Not to break them, to calm them, to tell them they can stop fighting. Crystal pulses once, twice, and then it simply stops. The glow fades. The warmth dies. The sphere sits on its pedestal, dark and cold and empty, a glass paperweight with nothing inside. The storm above collapses. Not violently, not like a detonation, like a sigh. The silver dome over Gwanghwamun Square simply fades, the frozen seconds releasing gently, time resuming its normal flow without a single crack or rupture or erased life. He's still standing. His left hand is still pressed against the dead crystal. Behind him, the older agent has dropped the brass cylinder. It clatters on the concrete floor, harmless now. "You actually did it," the agent whispers. He sounds like a man who just watched someone disprove 20 years of research in under a minute. "How? How did you do that?" Do-yoon turns around. His ribs are screaming, his legs are shaking, his right arm is dangling useless against his side, and he has maybe 10 months left to live. But his left hand is completely still. It's not about breaking things, it's about letting them go. He walks past the agent, past the 2 unconscious men on the floor, past the shattered shelves and the dead crystals, and the brass cradles that hummed with stolen time. He climbs the ladder, one rung at a time, his left hand doing all the work. When he reaches the surface, the city is alive again. Cars are honking, pedestrians are shouting, a child is laughing somewhere down the block. No one knows they were frozen. No one knows how close they came to being erased. A few blocks away, a man is kneeling in the center of Gwanghwamun Square, both palms flat against the pavement, shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. Do-yoon walks toward him. He's barely standing by the time he reaches the square, but he forces his legs to keep moving. No looks up. His face is gray. His eyes are sunken, but he's smiling. "It's done," No says. "Storm's gone, crystal's empty. I let it all go." "I know, I felt it." The whole eye just relaxed. Like the pressure vanished. "What did you do?" "The opposite of what everyone expects. Do-yoon sits down next to No, right there on the pavement, in the middle of Gwanghwamun Square, surrounded by confused pedestrians and wailing sirens, and a pigeon that has no memory of being frozen. His body gives out. He collapses onto his back, staring up at the sky, which is gray and clouded and completely ordinary. No doesn't try to move him. How many did you spend? Do-yoon does the math in his head. 500 heartbeats, give or take. Maybe 10 minutes of his life. Maybe less. Enough. Your lifespan is what it is. No is quiet for a moment. Then he stands up, slowly, leaning on the base of the statue for support. Kang got away. I saw him slip out when the dome dropped. He's gone. But the crystal is dead, and the storm is over, and you're still breathing. 3 wins out of 4. Not bad for a night's work. Do-yoon laughs. It hurts his broken ribs. He doesn't care. He said the Hidden Epoch has a facility under Mount Bukhan. They're building a time singularity, a point where all the stolen years converge, so they can erase anything they want from history. Kang wants to destroy it. He wants my help. No looks down at him. His expression is unreadable. Are you going to give it? Do-yoon thinks about the agent in the basement, holding the brass cylinder, about Kang's silver eyes fading to ordinary brown, about the river, always the river, flowing beneath everything. Yeah, but not yet. First, I need to learn how to fight someone who doesn't exist inside time. Kwon Song-ryol. Kang mentioned the name, said he's been stealing from entire dimensions, not just people. If I'm going to face him, I need more than stillness. I need something I don't have yet. Then we keep training. No offers him a hand. Do-yoon takes it with his left. He pulls himself upright, ribs screaming, right arm dangling, white hair plastered to his forehead with sweat. The sirens are getting closer. A crowd is forming at the edge of the square. Someone is pointing at the 2 men who just appeared in the center of a disaster zone with no explanation. We should go, No says. Yeah, they walk. Slowly, painfully, 2 men who just held a city together with nothing but will and breathing and the strange, quiet art of letting go. Behind them, the pigeon takes off from the statue of Admiral Yi. Its wings beat once, twice, and then it's gone. A gray blur vanishing into the gray sky. The river keeps flowing. Do-yoon keeps walking, and somewhere under Mount Bukhan, in a bunker that used to belong to the military, a man who has not aged in 400 years opens his eyes and smiles. Kwon Song-ryol has felt the crystal die, and now he's curious. Do-yoon blinks, and the world is not the world anymore. It's still Gwanghwamun Square, same gray sky, same pigeon still mid-flap, but now he can steal time. Golden filaments run through everything. Every person walking past him has a line of gold stretching from their chest into the distance. Every car, every tree, every window in the skyscrapers around the square. All connected, all pulsing with a slow, steady rhythm, like the heartbeat of the universe. He sees a businessman arguing into a phone, and the man's thread flickers orange, then red, then gold again. He sees a child chasing a balloon, and the thread is so bright it hurts to look at. He sees No, still kneeling by the statue, and No's thread is silver and thin and fraying at the edges. It's still Gwanghwamun Square, but Do-yoon cannot move, and cannot speak, and cannot do anything except see. His left hand is shaking again, not with hunger but with overload. Too much, too bright, too connected. He tries to close his eyes, but the threads are still there behind his eyelids. He tries to breathe, and he can see the air itself moving through golden channels in his lungs. This is not the same as feeling the flow under the waterfall. This is not the same as sensing the river inside him. This is seeing the river. The entire river, everywhere, all at once. And it's burning him out from the inside. No looks up. His face changes. The exhaustion vanishes and is replaced by something Do-yoon has never seen on No's face before. Fear. Do-yoon, what do you see? Do-yoon can't answer. His voice is caught somewhere in his throat, trapped behind the threads, and all he can do is stare at the golden web that connects everything to everything else, and wonder why no one else can see it. No grabs his shoulders, hard. Tell me what you're seeing right now, out loud. Every detail. Do-yoon forces the words out, one at a time, like stones pulled from deep water. Threads. Gold. Everywhere. Everyone has one. Everyone is connected to everyone else. I can see where they cross. I can see where they break. I can see yours. And it's silver, and it's dying. No doesn't flinch. He says Do-yoon's near-death experience has done something no one expected. You touched the crystal's core. You pushed your own life into 63 years of stolen time, and you didn't die. You should have died. Everyone who's ever done that has died. But you didn't. Do-yoon is still seeing the threads. They're everywhere, overlapping, tangling. Some of them healthy, and some of them sick. Some of them cut clean and some of them torn. He asks what this means. No says he's awakened a higher perception, a sight that only 2 people in recorded history have ever achieved. The ability to see the weave of time itself as visible light and track the flow of years through the living world. The first was a monk in the 13th century. He starved to death because he couldn't stop watching the threads and forgot to eat. The second was a Hidden Epoch researcher 40 years ago. He went mad inside a week and tried to cut his own thread. He succeeded. Do-yoon laughs. It's not a happy laugh. It's the laugh of a man who just found out he's been promoted to captain of a sinking ship, but it's still a laugh. Great, so I have 11 months to live, my right arm is dead, and now I'm going to go insane watching golden strings until I forget to eat. Any other good news? No pulls him to his feet. And right now, Do-yoon can see the silver thread in No's chest pulse with affection and fear and something that looks like hope. The good news is that this changes everything. With this sight, you can find them. All of them. Every Hidden Epoch agent. Every stolen year. Every hidden facility. You can see where the threads have been cut and where the time has been pooled. You are now the single most valuable asset in the war against Seoul. Do-yoon closes his eyes. The threads are still there, but they're dimmer, manageable. He can almost push them to the edge of his awareness, like background noise at a party. He opens his eyes. The threads are still there, but he's not drowning in them anymore. And that's progress. And that's enough for now. He asks No what they do next. No says they find Lee Jae-hyun. The safe house is a basement apartment in a neighborhood that doesn't have a name, 3 blocks from an abandoned subway station and half a mile from the river. Lee Jae-hyun opens the door with a knife in one hand and a time delay bomb in the other. When she sees it's Do-yoon, she lowers both but doesn't put them away. She says she heard the storm stopped, heard the crystal shattered, heard Kang Hyun-woo got away. I also heard the Hidden Epoch just declared you public enemy #1 and tripled the bounty on your head. Congratulations, you're famous. Do-yoon doesn't have time for fame. He asks what she knows about a pocket dimension. Lee Jae-hyun sets the knife on a table, cluttered with maps and notes and half-eaten containers of instant noodles. She says the Hidden Epoch's fortress isn't in the real world. It's in a pocket dimension anchored to the mountain, Kwon Sung-ryol's personal domain. It's a space he created 400 years ago when he first figured out how to step outside the flow of time. It's not on any map. It's not accessible by any road. The only way in is through a gate hidden somewhere on Mount Bukhan. And the only people who know where that gate is are Kwon himself, his inner circle, and me. She found out from her brother before he vanished. Do-yoon asks if she can get them in. Lee Jae-hyun looks at him, and then at No, and then back at him. I can get you to the gate. What happens after that is your problem. That pocket dimension is not a building. It's not a bunker. It's a maze of rooms where time runs backward in some places and loops in others, and stops completely in the dead center, where Kwon sits on his throne of frozen clocks. People who go in don't come out. Even the people who work for him don't go inside. They deliver their harvest to the gate and they leave. Nobody enters the fortress. Ever. Do-yoon says he's entering the fortress. I'm finding Kwon. I'm stopping him. I'm ending this. Lee Jae-hyun stares at him for a long moment. Then she nods and says she'll draw him a map of the mountain approaches and mark the gate's location as best she can. But some parts are memory, and some are guesswork. Don't die, my brother would be disappointed. Do-yoon promises he won't. No says he's coming. Do-yoon turns to argue, and No holds up a hand. If you're going into a pocket dimension where time runs backward, you need someone who can hold a stable present around you. I've spent 20 years learning to do exactly that. I'm the only reason you'll survive the first 5 minutes. Do-yoon says No has already done enough, already risked enough, already almost died holding the eye open in the square. No's expression doesn't change. I killed my brother with stolen time when I was 21 years old. I've spent every day since then waiting for a reason to use what I've learned for something other than regret. You are that reason. I'm coming. Do-yoon looks at No's thread. It's still silver and fraying and thin, but it's also steady. It doesn't flicker. It doesn't waver. It just burns, quiet and constant, like a candle in a room with no wind. He says okay. Lee Jae-hyun spreads a map across the table and starts marking routes. The mountain is 20 miles north of the city, and the gate is on the eastern slope inside a cave that doesn't exist on any official survey. No checks their supplies. Rice, dried fish, rope, a lantern. A single crystal that he says might help stabilize the pocket dimension's entrance long enough for them to get through. Do-yoon flexes his left hand. The threads are still there, still visible, still pulsing in the corner of his vision. But he's learning to filter them, to focus on the ones that matter and let the rest fade. He has a year to live, maybe less. He has a dead right arm, broken ribs, and more stolen time in his bones than any person should carry. He has a teacher who killed his own brother, and a guide whose brother was erased from existence, and a woman on a rooftop who's still watching him, and a rival who got away, and a 400-year-old monster sitting on a throne of frozen clocks under a mountain waiting for him to arrive. And he can see the threads. Every connection, every cut, every place where the river of time has been dammed and stolen and pooled for centuries. He knows exactly where Kwon is. He can see the wound. The great dark absence in the weave where the pocket dimension sits like a tumor in the flow of years. He doesn't know how to fight something that doesn't exist inside time. He doesn't know if stillness will work against a man who ages backward. He doesn't know if he'll survive the first room, or the first trap, or the first moment Kwon actually looks at him. He's going anyway. Do shoulders his pack. Lee Jae-hyun hands him the map. The basement apartment smells like instant noodles and old paper and determination. They walk out into the gray morning and head north toward the mountain. And Do-yoon watches the threads of every person they pass and wonders which ones will still be there when he comes back. He wonders if he'll still be there when he comes back. He keeps walking. The gate isn't a door. It's a fissure in the granite, a vertical seam no wider than a man's shoulders. And it breathes. Cold air exhales from the crack in slow pulses, each one carrying the smell of old stone and something sharper underneath. Ozone, maybe, or the static charge of centuries pressing against the present. No stands at the fissure's edge, the stabilizing crystal humming in his left hand. The thing glows faintly blue, casting his weathered face in strange angles of light. Our boy watches the threads. Every connection in the mountain's weave bends toward this crack like water circling a drain. The fissure isn't a gateway, it's a wound. No says the entrance will only hold for a few seconds once he activates the crystal. Do-yoon nods. His right arm is still strapped useless against his ribs. His left hand is steady. No presses the crystal into the seam. The light flares, the fissure widens, and the exhale becomes an inhale, a sudden vacuum that yanks them both forward into absolute silence. The pocket dimension opens around them like a camera shutter snapping shut. Do-yoon lands on his feet on a floor of black stone. The air is cold and still and wrong. Every breath feels borrowed. No stumbles in behind him, the crystal's light already fading to a dim pulse. Behind them, the fissure seals with a sound like a jaw clicking shut. The room is circular, maybe 30 feet across. 7 archways line the walls, each one opening onto a different kind of wrong. One shows a corridor where dust hangs frozen mid-air. Another reveals a hallway where the shadows move backward. A third is just a wall of silver fog that twists counterclockwise. No steadies himself and says the fortress is already reacting to them. The shifting isn't random, it's defensive. Do-yoon looks at the threads. Here, they don't flow, they knot. Every surface vibrates with tangled years, stolen moments braided into walls and floors and ceilings. The whole place is built from harvested time. He takes a step toward the central archway, the one where the threads are thinnest, least tangled. And the floor lurches. Gravity tilts. The room spins 20 degrees left, then 40 degrees right, then snaps back so fast, Do-yoon's stomach drops. No grabs his shoulder and says the dimension is cycling. Time in here doesn't flow in one direction. Our boy steadies himself and watches the threads pulse. There's a rhythm to the lurching, a pattern. He counts the beats, 3 forward, 2 back, and steps onto the floor exactly when the rhythm starts its forward pulse. The room settles. For now, they move through the central archway into a corridor that stretches much farther than the mountain's width should allow. The walls are seamless black stone. The ceiling vanishes into darkness. Every 10 feet, a new door. The first room they pass is frozen mid-collapse. A ceiling of cracked stone hanging a foot above the floor. Dust suspended in ropes of stopped time. A bronze chandelier caught 3 inches from impact. No says some of these rooms are traps. Others are storage. Some are both. They keep moving. Corridor shifts. For a stretch, time runs backward. Their footprints appear in the dust ahead of them and vanish under their feet as they walk. Do-yoon's left hand tingles with the wrongness of it, but he doesn't stop. The next door opens onto a library where every book is a person's stolen year, bound in leather made from the victim's memory of sunlight. Do-yoon stares at it for exactly 1 second. Then he keeps walking. He says they're not here for the harvest. They're here for the harvester. No doesn't argue, but his breathing is already heavier than it should be. The corridor ends at a second circular chamber. This one has no archways, just a single door of white stone at the far end, and standing in front of it, something that isn't alive. Guardian is human-shaped, but wrong in every detail. Its body is made of frozen moments, stacked like panes of glass. Each layer a captured instant. A sword swing arrested mid-arc. A scream, frozen into a sheet of silver light. A heartbeat compressed into a wafer of translucent crystal. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't have a thread. Do-yoon looks for the golden line that connects every living thing to the weave, and finds nothing. The Guardian is time with all the flow carved out of it. No says it's a construct. The Epoch built it from stolen years, and then froze those years solid. It's not alive. It's not dead. It's just a wall made of other people's moments. The Guardian's head turns. No eyes. No face. Just the flat surface of a frozen second where the glass is thickest. It attacks without transition. One instant it's standing still. The next, a blade of compressed time, a single moment honed to a cutting edge, is arcing toward Do-yoon's throat. He dodges by a finger's width. The blade passes through the air where his neck was and keeps going, embedding itself in the stone wall behind him with a sound like a bell struck underwater. No time to think. No time to plan. The Guardian swings again. Not fast, but inevitable. The way a clock's hand doesn't hurry toward midnight but always arrives. Do-yoon ducks. The blade shears a strip of hair from his scalp. He reaches out with his left hand, grabs the Guardian's wrist, and tries to steal. Nothing happens. The wrist under his grip is cold and solid and absolutely empty of flow. There's no thread to pull, no river to dam. The Guardian isn't holding stolen time. It is stolen time. And the theft has already been finished and locked and frozen for centuries. The Guardian doesn't even register the attempt. It just swings again, and this time the blade catches Do-yoon across the ribs. Not cutting exactly, but passing through, leaving a stripe of cold that sinks into his bones and makes him gasp. No shouts that the Guardian can't be stolen from. It has no present, no heartbeat, no forward motion. Our boy stumbles back. The cold in his ribs spreads. A patch of skin gone numb. A few seconds of his own life erased by contact with the blade. He looks at the Guardian again. Not at its surface, at its structure. The threads are still there. Not the Guardian's threads. It has none. But the threads between its layers. The seams where one frozen moment was welded to the next. Each seam is a hairline of gold, barely visible, buried under centuries of compression. Nobody else could see them. Not the Epic. Nobody who hasn't awakened the sight of the weave. Do-yoon sees them. Hundreds of seams. Thousands. But only one of them is still connected to the present. There. At the center of the Guardian's chest. A single golden thread that isn't frozen. A moment that hasn't happened yet. Suspended inside a cage of moments that already have. The Guardian's neck swing comes from above. A two-handed blow meant to split him in half. Do-yoon doesn't dodge. He steps inside the arc. Twists sideways. His left hand drives forward, not grabbing, not stealing, just striking. And his fingers close around that one living thread in the dead thing's heart. He pulls. The thread snaps. The Guardian stops mid-swing. The frozen moments that make up its body crack apart like ice on a warming river. Cracks spiderweb through the compressed seconds. The captured sword swings. The screams turn to glass. The whole thing shatters. Shards of frozen time rain across the stone floor and dissolve into silver mist. Do-yoon stands in the center of the dissolving wreckage, breathing hard. His ribs ache. The cold patch in his side is still spreading, but he's standing. No exhales. He says that was the door guard. The real traps are further in. They don't rest. They don't wait for the cold in Do-yoon's side to fade. The white stone door slides open at a touch, and the fortress proper yawns before them. A maze of rooms that don't obey any geometry Do-yoon has ever learned. The first room is a dining hall, where the chairs slide backward into empty air and reassemble themselves every 14 seconds. The food on the table rots and unrots in a 3-second cycle. Portrait on the wall shows a man aging from youth to dust to youth again without ever leaving the frame. They cross it in 10 seconds. Do-yoon watches the threads and walks when the room's rhythm puts the floor under his feet. No follows his lead. His breathing is louder now. His thread, still silver, still fraying, flickers at the edges. The second room is a spiral staircase that climbs and descends simultaneously. Every step is a different year. Do-yoon puts his foot down on 1843 and feels the cold of a winter that ended before his great-grandfather was born. The next step is 2011, the year his mother died. He knows it the instant his heel touches the stone. And he doesn't know how he knows, But the knowledge sinks into him like a stone into water. Keeps climbing. Or descending. In the stair, they're the same thing. No is slower now. His foot catches on a step marked 1978, the year he was born, and he staggers. Do-yoon catches his arm and pulls him forward. At the top of the stair, a corridor stretches into darkness. The walls are lined with clocks. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Each one ticks at a different speed. Some tick forward, some backward. Some are stopped entirely. The sound is a roar of mismatched heartbeats. Do-yoon walks down the center of the corridor. The clocks watch him with blank faces. A grandfather clock to his left chimes 14 times and then unwinds itself. A pocket watch on a pedestal spins its hands counterclockwise so fast they blur into a silver disc. At the end of the corridor, a door. Iron, heavy, marked with the cracked circle and the dot. No says this is the inner sanctum. Kwon will be somewhere beyond it. Do-yoon pushes the door open. The next room is a trap. It looks like a workshop. Tables covered in brass instruments, shelves of crystals identical to the ones from the bunker. Blueprints pinned to walls with needles made of bone. But the threads here are wrong. They pulse in a pattern Do-yoon recognizes. Acceleration, acceleration, acceleration. No steps forward to examine a device on the nearest table. A sphere of twisted glass with something dark moving inside it, and triggers the mechanism. The room compresses. Not physically, temporally. Every second in the room becomes a minute. Every minute, an hour. The air thickens as time accelerates. The oxygen thinning. The dust on the tables blooming into clouds, and then decaying into nothing in the space of a breath. No gasps. His thread flares bright. He's using his own control, pushing back against the acceleration, trying to hold a stable present around himself. It's not enough. The room was designed to overwhelm exactly this kind of defense. Do-yoon watches No's thread begin to fray faster. The silver is thinning. The edges are going dark. He grabs No's arm and tries to pull him back toward the door. But the door is gone. The room has sealed itself, a perfect sphere of accelerated time with no exit. No's knees buckle. He says he can't hold it. Do-yoon looks at the threads again. Not No's thread, the room's threads. Every trap has a seam. Every construct has a weak point. The auction bubble had one. The bunker rupture had one. This acceleration field has one. There, in the center of the sphere. A single thread that isn't accelerating. A steady point, motionless. The present moment around which the whole trap was built. Do-yoon doesn't have time to walk to it. The acceleration is too fast. By the time he reaches the center, No will have aged himself into unconsciousness. Maybe worse. So he doesn't walk. He spends a year of stolen time. One of the years he took from the agents in the bunker. One of the decades still cold in his bones. And moves. The world blurs. The acceleration field tries to grip him, and he slips through it. A fish cutting across a current. The stolen year burning away in a single impossible sprint. He reaches the center thread, grabs it, and feeds it 2 seconds of his own life. The seam breaks. The acceleration collapses. The room snaps back to normal time with a sound like a glass rod breaking. The iron door reappears. Dust settles. The blueprints stop fluttering. No is on the floor. His thread is intact, still silver, still burning, but dimmer than it was. And his left leg is wrong. The flesh from knee to ankle is gray, the skin cracked like old leather, the muscle visibly atrophied underneath. The acceleration caught him for maybe 40 subjective years. Just the one leg. Just long enough. Do-yoon crouches beside him. He says they're going back. They can find another way. No shakes his head. His voice is hoarse but steady. He says the door behind them won't open again. The fortress doesn't let you retreat. He tries to stand. His left leg crumples under him. Our boy catches him before he hits the ground. No says he can't walk. Not on that leg. Not for hours, maybe days, maybe ever. Do-yoon looks at the iron door ahead of them. He looks at the sealed wall behind them. He looks at No's thread, dim and fraying but still there, still steady, still burning. He lifts No onto his back, right arm dead and strapped to his ribs, left arm hooked under No's good leg. Broken ribs grinding with every breath. Less than a year of his own life left. Decades of stolen time in his bones that he can't spend recklessly. A fortress full of traps. A timeless monster waiting at the center. He stands up anyway. No says he's too heavy. Do-yoon says he's carried worse. He pushes the iron door open with his shoulder. The room beyond is dark and cold and full of stopped clocks. The floor slopes downward into a hall lined with frozen time. the air growing colder with every step. Somewhere in the dark, Kwon Song-ryol is waiting. Do-yoon walks forward, nose weight on his back, the clocks watching, the threads burning. Forward. Always forward. Always forward. The iron door swings shut behind them, and the sound dies immediately. Not an echo, not a fading clang. The sound simply stops existing the moment the door meets the frame. Our boy keeps walking, nose weight heavy on his back, the slope of the floor angling downward into colder air. The corridor ahead is not dark. It's lit. Thousands of candles flicker in iron sconces bolted to the walls, their flames perfectly still. No flicker, no draft. Each flame is a frozen teardrop of yellow light, and Do-yoon realizes they're not candles at all. They're seconds. Single seconds, extracted from someone's life, suspended in glass tubes and burning without consuming anything. Nose thread pulses weakly against Do-yoon's shoulder. His voice is a rasp. He asks what Do-yoon sees. Do-yoon tells him. Seconds. Thousands of them. Burning forever. No goes quiet for a long moment. Then he says one word. Kwon. The corridor opens into a hall. Not a room, a hall. Vaulted ceiling lost in shadow. Stone pillars rising like ribs. And everywhere, clocks. Grandfather clocks taller than a man. Their pendulums swinging in rhythms that hurt to watch. Carriage clocks on pedestals, their hands spinning backward. Pocket watches suspended on silver chains from the ceiling. Hundreds of them, each ticking at a different speed. Some tick forward, some tick backward, some tick sideways in directions that make Do-yoon's eyes ache. Some do not tick at all. The floor is black marble, polished to a mirror. The threads here are so dense they form a net, a web, a solid wall of gold. And at the center of the web, a figure waits. He sits in a high-backed chair carved from a single block of white stone, his hands folded in his lap, his eyes closed. Kwon Song-ryol. He looks maybe 40, maybe 400. His face is smooth, unlined, but his eyes, when he opens them, are the color of old ice, pale blue fading to silver at the edges. He wears a simple black robe with no ornament, no symbol, no mark of the Hidden Epoch anywhere on his person. He does not need one. He is the epoch. The clocks around him tick faster as Do-yoon approaches, then slower, then faster again, responding to something. Presence, proximity, weight of stolen time in our boy's bones. Do-yoon stops 10 paces from the throne. He lowers No carefully to the floor, propping him against a pillar where his gray leg stretches out useless. No's breathing is shallow but steady. His thread holds. Kwon speaks. His voice is calm, pleasant even. He says he has been waiting a long time for someone to reach this room. He says the last visitor was 163 years ago, a woman from the Ming court who had stolen 4 centuries from her enemies and wanted to bargain for more. Kwon tilts his head slightly. He asks if Do-yoon knows what happened to her. Our boy doesn't answer. Kwon smiles. She is one of the clocks now. He gestures at a small porcelain timepiece on a pedestal to his left, its hands spinning counterclockwise in a blur. Do-yoon looks at it. He sees the thread inside it. Faint. Fraying. Still alive somehow, after all this time. Still ticking. Our boy's left hand curls into a fist. His right arm hangs dead against his ribs, the straps digging into his shoulder. His broken ribs grind with every breath. Less than a year of his own life left. Decades of stolen time in his bones. A monster in front of him who cannot be touched by theft. He doesn't run. He doesn't flinch. He asks the only question that matters. Why? Kwon's smile doesn't waver. He says that's the right question. He says most people who reach this room ask how to join him, how to serve him, how to become him. None of them ever ask why. Kwon rises from his chair. The movement is strange, wrong, because it doesn't flow like a normal body standing up. It's more like a series of still images stitched together, each frame a separate instant, the gaps between them invisible and too small to measure. Crosses the hall in that same stuttering motion, appearing closer with each broken step, until he stands 5 paces from Do-yoon. The clocks around him go silent. Every pendulum stops mid-swing. Every tick ceases. The hall is absolutely still. Kwon says he was born in a village that no longer exists, in a kingdom that history forgot, 472 years ago. He says he was a scholar, a student of calendars and star charts, and the way water erodes stone. He says he discovered the flow of time the way a fish discovers the current, by feeling it push against him, by sensing the shape of the thing that carried him toward death. He spent 30 years learning to touch the current, another 20 learning to slow it. And then, in his 53rd year, he learned to stop it. Not for himself. He couldn't do that yet. But for a single apple, suspended in a jar on his desk, still fresh and red after a decade. He shows Do-yoon his palm. In the center of it, a single dark line. Not a scar. A crack. The place where he stopped his own time for the first time, freezing the flow inside his body, becoming the first thing in the universe that did not age. Kwon says the cost was not what he expected. He says he thought the price would be his body, his heart stopping, his lungs freezing, his blood turning to ice. Instead, the price was his place in the weave. He shows Do-yoon his other palm. There is no thread, no golden line, no connection to anything around him. Kwon exists outside the weave entirely, not above it, not beyond it, but removed from it, like a stone pulled from a river and set on the bank. He can see the threads. He can manipulate them. He can harvest them. But he is not part of them anymore. And that, he says, is why he created the Hidden Epoch. Not for power, not for immortality. He has both already. He created the epoch to find someone who could do what he cannot. Someone who is still inside the weave. Someone who can steal time without breaking their own thread. Someone who can be both inside and outside at once. His ice-colored eyes are unreadable. He says Do-yoon is that person. He says the power to steal time is rare, maybe 1 in a million. But the power to steal time and remain tethered to the weave is rarer. 1 in 100 million, maybe 1 in history. He says he has been waiting 4 centuries for someone like our boy to be born. The clocks behind him begin to tick again, one by one. A wave of sound spreading outward from his back. Kwon extends his hand, not to attack, to offer. He says he can give Do-yoon what he wants. Eternal life. Infinite time. A place at his side, outside the weave, watching the centuries roll past like clouds. All Do-yoon has to do is one thing. Stop stealing from individuals. Start harvesting from dimensions. Become the epoch's right hand. Become timeless. Do-yoon looks at the offered hand. He looks at the clocks. The thousands of stolen lives burning in glass tubes and ticking in porcelain cases. The woman from the Ming court still spinning in her counterclockwise cage. He looks at No, slumped against the pillar, his leg gray and dead. His thread dim but still burning, still part of the weave, still connected to everything. He looks at his own thread, golden, fraying at the edges. Less than a year left, but still woven into the world. Still part of the river, still flowing. He looks back at Kwon. And he says no. The word lands like a stone dropped into still water. The clocks shudder. The flames in the glass tubes flicker for the first time. Kwon's expression doesn't change. He simply withdraws his hand. He says that's unfortunate. He says he hoped Do-yoon would understand. He says understanding was the whole point. The reason he let Do-yoon live. The reason he didn't send Seo-jia to kill him in the dojo. The reason he let him train and grow and fight his way to this room. Kwon wanted Do-yoon to see what the epic was building, to see the scale of it, to see the logic, and to choose it freely. Because a harvest made under duress is worthless. A stolen year taken by force is just theft. But a year given willingly, a thread cut by its owner, that is something else. That is a sacrifice. And sacrifice is the only thing that can bridge the gap between the weave and the outside. Kwon turns away. He walks back toward his throne. His voice is still calm, still pleasant, but something in the air changes. Pressure. Weight. The feeling of a door closing. He says if Do-yoon won't join him, then Do-yoon will become fuel. He says the epic has been harvesting from small dimensions, pocket realms, temporal folds, the edges of the weave, for centuries. But a single willing sacrifice, someone with Do-yoon's connection, someone still tethered, still burning, that would be enough to open a door into the deep weave. The source. The place where time begins. Kwon could drink from the river itself, not stolen years, not harvested decades. The entire flow, forever. He reaches his throne and turns to face Do-yoon. His ice-colored eyes are no longer calm. They're hungry. He says he will take Do-yoon's thread, not his time, his thread. The golden line that connects him to the weave, to the river, to everyone he's ever touched and everyone who will ever touch him. He will sever it and keep it and use it as a key. And Do-yoon will become what Kwon is. Timeless, threadless, alone, forever. Our boy doesn't wait for him to finish. He moves. 1 stolen year burns away in a single lunge, his body crossing the distance between them before the last word leaves Kwon's mouth. His left fist drives toward Kwon's chest, not to steal time but to break bone, to shatter ribs, to do damage the old-fashioned way. His fist passes through empty air. Kwon is 3 feet to the left. He didn't dodge. He didn't move. He simply wasn't there, and then he was somewhere else. The transition seamless. The gap between instants erased. Do-yoon lands, pivots, strikes again. Kwon is behind him. Do-yoon spins and attacks a third time. Kwon is on his throne, sitting, his hands folded exactly as they were when Do-yoon first entered the hall. He didn't defend. He didn't counter. He just stopped being in the places where Do-yoon's fists arrived. Do-yoon stands in the center of the hall, breathing hard, his broken ribs screaming, his dead right arm swinging uselessly against his side. Kwon watches him from the throne. He says Do-yoon doesn't understand. He says time thieves fight by taking from others, stealing their moments, slowing their movements, gaining speed by draining speed from everyone around them. But Kwon has no time to steal. He has no flow, no present, no future, no past that can be touched or taken or slowed. He exists in the gaps between ticks, in the silence between seconds, in the space where the weave doesn't reach. He is the still point. And in stillness, speed means nothing. Do-yoon doesn't answer. He's watching the threads. Not Kwon's. Kwon has no thread. But the clocks, the candles, the years burning in glass tubes. Every stolen second in this hall is connected to the weave by a thin golden line, a tether that anchors it to the real world. And Kwon, for all his power, is surrounded by them, a web of connections he cannot see. Because he removed himself from the weave, he gave up the sight, he gave up the threads. And our boy realizes something. Kwon isn't untouchable. He's blind. He navigates the world by predicting the flow, by calculating probabilities, by knowing where the river will carry everything around him. But he can't see the threads. He doesn't know that every clock in this hall is a doorway, a single golden line connecting that stolen moment back to the person it was taken from. And the threads are visible to Do-yoon, only to Do-yoon. He plants his feet. He breathes. He stops trying to hit Kwon and starts watching the pattern. Kwon's movements aren't teleportation. They're not speed. They're not dodging. He's shifting between instants, choosing which moment to exist in, stepping from one now into another now, never passing through the space between. But he can only shift to places that are empty of connection, places where no thread touches him, places where the weave is thin. And Do-yoon can see exactly where those places are. He can see the gaps in Kwon's existence, the pockets of stillness where no golden line runs. He stops attacking. He waits. Kwon rises from his throne again, his stuttering motion carrying him across the hall in a series of broken instants. He extends his hand toward Do-yoon's chest, toward his thread, toward the golden line that connects him to everything. His fingers are inches away. Do-yoon doesn't dodge. He steps into a gap. Not a physical gap, a gap in the weave. A space between the threads where Kwon's next instant hasn't arrived yet, and his previous instant has already passed. Do-yoon moves into that gap, and for one flickering heartbeat, he is standing in the same now as Kwon. Kwon's eyes widen. For the first time, 472 years, something touches him. Do-yoon's left fist drives into his ribs, not stealing time, not draining years, just bone on bone, knuckle on flesh. Force delivered to a body that hasn't felt force in centuries. Kwon flies backward. He crashes through a grandfather clock, shattering it. The pendulum spinning across the marble floor, hands breaking off and skittering into shadow. He lands on his back. He stares at the ceiling. His hand goes to his ribs. He's bleeding. He's bruised. He's hurt. He's been hurt. For the first time since he pulled himself out of the weave, he sits up. His ice-colored eyes are wild, not afraid, furious. He says that's impossible. He says nothing can touch him. He says he removed himself from the flow, from the current, from the reach of anything that moves through time. Do-yoon stands over him. His right arm is dead weight. His ribs are screaming. He says Kwon made one mistake. He says the gaps aren't empty. They're just small. Small enough that Kwon never noticed them. Small enough that only someone who can see the threads, someone still inside the weave, someone who has burned his own years and carried stolen decades and felt the river flow through him, could find them. Kwon's face goes blank. The fury vanishes, replaced by something colder, something calculating. He stands up in that stuttering motion, his body repairing itself between instants, the bruise fading, the blood drying, torn skin knitting together. He can't regenerate. He has no time to steal, but he can shift to a version of himself that wasn't hit, a version from an instant earlier, an instant where Do-yoon's fist hadn't landed yet. He's not healing. He's editing. He says Do-yoon is more valuable than he thought. He says the sight of the weave, the ability to find the gaps, the instinct to move into the spaces between instants. This is not normal. This is not training. This is something no one has ever done before. Something no one was supposed to be able to do. He says the harvest will be glorious. He raises both hands. The clocks around the hall begin to spin. Every hand on every timepiece accelerates. Forward, backward, sideways, all at once. A storm of motion. A hurricane of stolen moments. The sound is deafening. Ticking layered on ticking, layered on ticking. Thousands of distinct rhythms overlapping into a single shriek of frozen time. The threads in the hall twist. Kwon is pulling them taut. Every stolen second in every clock is being dragged toward him. And Do-yoon sees what he's doing. He's not trying to touch Do-yoon. He's trying to thicken the weave, to close the gaps, to fill the empty spaces with so many threads that there is no gap left to step into. If he succeeds, Do-yoon has nowhere to go, nowhere to stand, no instant where Kwon can't reach him, no shouts from the pillar. His voice is raw. He says Do-yoon needs to move. Now, before the gaps close. Our boy doesn't hesitate. He runs. Not away from Kwon, toward him, straight into the storm of ticking clocks and spinning hands and twisting threads, into the densest part of the weave, where the gaps are smallest and most dangerous. Because that's where Kwon won't expect him. That's where Kwon's own harvest is thickest. That's where the spaces between instants are narrow enough that only someone who can see the weave, someone who has spent days in the mist, feeling the river, someone who has burned his own years and carried the dead and walked through a city of frozen light, could possibly stand. Do-yoon finds a gap the width of a heartbeat. He steps into it. The storm rages around him. Kwon is 3 feet away, his hands raised, the threads pulling tighter and tighter. He hasn't seen Do-yoon yet. He's looking at the place where our boy was standing. He's calculating where the river should have carried him. He's predicting the flow. But Do-yoon isn't in the flow. He's in the gap. And in the gap, there is no time, no past, no future, no now. Just stillness, just silence, just the space between. Do-yoon moves. In the gap, there is no sound, no ticking, no screaming, no heartbeat, just stillness so complete it feels like drowning. Do-yoon stands in the space between instants and watches the storm rage 3 feet away. Kwon's hands are still raised, pulling every thread in the hall toward himself. The gaps are closing. Our boy counts 3 heartbeats before there's nowhere left to stand. 3 heartbeats to end a man who hasn't been touched in 472 years. He's got less than a year of his own life left, and a dead right arm strapped to his ribs. Broken ribs grind with every breath. Even here, even in the gap where time doesn't move. Pain doesn't care about the weave. It just is. Do-yoon looks at the threads. He sees them clearly now. Every golden line in the hall. Every stolen second in every clock. Every connection Kwon has severed to make himself untouchable. And he sees something else. The stolen time in his own bones. Years he took from Gangchul and Yoon Myung-soo and 3 agents in a bunker under a textile mill. Not decades. Not years. 24 hours of stolen time, maximum. And every second of it is screaming to be used. The gap shrinks. 2 heartbeats left. Do-yoon makes a decision that would make No proud. He doesn't try to steal anything. He doesn't try to hit Kwon again. He opens his left hand and lets go. Every stolen second he's carrying, all 24 hours, every moment he took from 6 different men, every heartbeat he's been hoarding since the pit, he pushes it out of his body in a single breath. The stolen time hits the weave like a hammer. It doesn't flow. It doesn't move. It freezes. The gap Do-yoon is standing in locks solid around him, and then it spreads outward. And every thread in the hall stops moving, and every clock stops ticking, and the storm of motion Kwon was building just halts. Kwon freezes mid-gesture, his hands 3 inches apart, his mouth open, his ice-colored eyes fixed on the place where Do-yoon was standing. He's not in the gap anymore. He's trapped in absolute stillness. And for the first time in 472 years, Kwon Song-ryol cannot choose which instant to exist in. Because there is only one instant now, and Do-yoon owns it. Our boy steps out of the gap. His stolen time is gone. Every borrowed second burned. His body feels hollow and light and terrifyingly mortal. 11 months left in his own clock, and not a heartbeat more. But his left hand is steady, and Kwon can't move. Do-yoon walks toward the frozen entity, through the silent hall, past the shattered grandfather clock and the scattered hands and the candles that have stopped burning. Each step sends fire through his broken ribs. He doesn't care. He reaches Kwon. The timeless being is trapped like a fly in amber, his face caught between fury and disbelief, his hands suspended in the act of closing the weave. Do-yoon looks at him for one long moment. Then he hits him. Not with stolen time. Not with the weave. Not with any trick or technique or clever use of his power. He hits him with everything his broken body has left. 11 months of remaining life. Every scar. Every dead nerve in his right arm. Every grinding breath through shattered ribs. His left fist connects with Kwan's jaw. The sound is just meat on meat. Kwan's head snaps back. His body lifts off the throne and flies backward, crashing through 2 clocks and a pillar of frozen seconds before he hits the black marble floor and skids to a stop. The absolute freeze shatters. Time rushes back into the hall. Clocks resume ticking. Threads resume moving. Candles resume burning their stolen moments. Kwan lies on his back, staring at the vaulted ceiling. He's not laughing. He's not speaking. He's just staring. And then his body begins to reform. Not healing. He still can't heal. He has no time to steal but editing, shifting, choosing a version of himself that exists in an instant where Do-yoon's fist hasn't landed yet. The jaw unbreaks. The bruise fades. Blood dries and vanishes. But something is wrong. Kwan stands up and his form flickers. For one heartbeat, he looks solid. For the next, Do-yoon can see through him. The broken clocks behind him, the marble floor, the scattered hands. He's unstable. The hit landed somewhere deeper than flesh. Somewhere even his editing can't reach. Kwan looks at his own hands. They're flickering too. He starts to laugh. It's not the cold, measured laugh from before. It's high and wild and disbelieving. The laugh of a man who forgot what pain feels like and just remembered. He says this is magnificent. He says Do-yoon burned 24 hours of stolen time to create one perfect frozen instant. 24 hours spent on a single moment of absolute stillness, and then used nothing but his own failing body to deliver the blow. He says no one has ever done that. He says no one has ever even thought to try. He says the harvest will be beyond measure. He raises his flickering hands again, and the threads in the hall begin to twist once more. But slower this time. More careful. More deliberate. Kwan is learning. He's adapting. He's seen what Do-yoon can do with the gaps, and he's already calculating how to close them permanently. Our boy watches him, chest heaving, ribs screaming, right arm dead against his side. He's got no stolen time left. 24 hours, gone in one desperate gambit. 11 months of his own life remaining. One working arm, a set of broken ribs, a timeless entity in front of him who's just been hurt for the second time in 472 years and is furious about it. Do-yoon tries to steal from him again. Nothing. Of course nothing. Kwan has no time to steal. He exists outside the weave, outside the flow, outside everything Do-yoon's power can touch. Theft is useless here. It's always been useless here. And that's when our boy understands. He's been trying to beat Kwan the wrong way. Every fight he's ever been in, every enemy he's ever faced, every obstacle he's ever overcome, he did it by taking. Take time from Gang Chul. Take time from Yoon Myung-soo. Take time from the agents, from the bunker, from the Guardian. Take and take and take until he was fast enough to win. But Kwan has nothing to take. Kwan is a void where time used to be, and you can't steal from a void. He thinks about No, kneeling in Gwanghwamun Square with his palms on the pavement. No didn't take anything to hold the eye open. He gave his own stability, his own presence, his own connection to the weave. He spent himself to create a space where Do-yoon could survive. He thinks about Heo, crumbling to dust in the dojo. Heo didn't fight the theft. He let it happen. He gave his remaining years to save Do-yoon from the Hidden Epoch's harvest. He thinks about Master Ryu, sitting in her stone hut, handing him a scrap of paper with the character for River. She didn't teach him to steal better. She taught him to feel the flow, to move with it instead of against it. Stop stealing. Start spending. Stop taking. Start giving. Do-yoon looks at Kwan, and for the first time since he walked into this hall of stopped clocks, he knows what he has to do. Stop trying to take Kwan's time. Stop trying to find a gap where he can land another punch. Stop fighting like a time thief, and start fighting like someone who understands that the fastest path isn't about robbing others of their moments. It's about using your own. Every single one. Completely. He's got 11 months left. That's more than enough. He plants his feet on the black marble floor, broken ribs grinding, right arm useless, left hand open at his side. He's not going to steal anything. He's going to offer something. The thing Kwan has been searching for. The thing no one in 472 years has been willing to give him voluntarily. A second. One single second. Given freely. Not taken. A gift from inside the weave to the void outside. Kwan's flickering eyes widen. He sees what Do-yoon is doing. He sees the intention in the set of our boy's shoulders, and the stillness in his left hand, and the absolute absence of theft in his stance. He says no. He says Do-yoon doesn't understand what that would do. He says a second given willingly, a true sacrifice, would bridge the gap between the weave and the outside, would open a door Kwan has been trying to force for centuries, would grant him access to something far beyond immortality. He says Do-yoon would be throwing away his own life to give a monster the keys to everything. Our boy doesn't move. He says he knows. He says Kwan's been harvesting unwilling victims for 400 years, and it's never worked. Because stolen time can't open the door, it has to be given. He says that's why Kwan needs a willing sacrifice. That's why he's been waiting. That's why he let Do-yoon walk into this hall instead of erasing him at the gate. He says Kwan wanted him to figure it out, wanted him to offer, wanted him to give, and now he's going to. But not the way Kwan expects. Not as a surrender, as a weapon. His left hand opens. The second sits in his palm like a bead of water. Not stolen. Not ripped from anyone's timeline. Stolen time from his enemies, pulled from the 11 months he has taken. Offered freely into the space between himself and Kwan. The Hall of Clocks goes silent. Every ticking mechanism stops at once. Not frozen by force, but paused, listening. As if the fortress itself recognizes what's happening. The golden threads in Do-yoon's vision pulse once. A heartbeat of light that runs through every strand connecting every clock and every candle and every frozen second in every glass tube. Kwan's flickering form goes still. His ice-colored eyes lock onto the second in Do-yoon's palm. And for the first time in 472 years, timeless entity looks afraid. He says it's impossible. He says no one has ever offered willingly. He says Do-yoon doesn't understand what he's holding, that a single second given freely from inside the weave to the void outside isn't just a gift. It's a bridge. And once the bridge is built, it cannot be unmade. Our boy stands there, right arm dead against his ribs, broken bones grinding. 11 months of life left in his body, and one of them now floating in his open hand. He says he knows. He says that's the point. He says Kwan has spent 4 centuries trying to force his way into the deep weave, harvesting unwilling victims and building machines and creating pocket dimensions. And none of it has ever worked because the door only opens one way, from the inside, by choice, by sacrifice. Kwan's hands come up, palms out, the dark crack visible in his left one, the right one still empty of any thread. He says Do-yoon will die. He says the bridge will consume whatever is offered. 1 second, 1 year, 1 lifetime. It doesn't matter. The door takes what it takes and never gives back. He thinks about the waterfall. He thinks about No standing waist deep in freezing water, holding a single drop on his fingertip, showing him that a second isn't a weapon, it's a choice. He thinks about Hayo crumbling to dust in the dojo, giving his remaining years without hesitation, because saving Do-yoon was worth more than staying alive. He thinks about Master Ryu's scrap of paper with the character for River, and the way the mist curled around his ankles on the stone platform, the sound of the bridge pulsing under his feet like a living heartbeat. He's been stealing time since the moment he discovered his power, taking from Gangchol, taking from Yoon Myung-soo, taking from the agents in the bunker and the guardian in the fortress, and every opponent who ever stood in his way. He's been a thief his whole life, first in the fighting pits, then in the underground, then in the hidden world of time users and Hidden Epoch operatives. He's always believed that the fastest path was the one you stole from someone else. He's always believed that strength meant having more than your enemy. He's always believed that winning meant taking until there was nothing left to take. He was wrong. The fastest path isn't about robbing others of their moments. It's about using your own. Every single one. Completely. Without hesitation. Without holding back. Without saving anything for later. He opens his eyes and pushes the second forward. The hall explodes with light, not the cold silver of the time storm, or the dim amber of the frozen candles, or the pulsing blue of the containment crystals. This is gold, pure gold. The color of the threads in his vision, the color of the weave itself, pouring out of the second in his palm like water from a broken dam. The light hits Kwan square in the chest, and the timeless entity screams, a sound that isn't a scream at all, but a tearing. A ripping. Noise of something that has existed outside time for 4 centuries suddenly being dragged back into the flow. The clocks start spinning. All of them. Grandfather clocks and carriage clocks and pocket watches on silver chains. Hands whirling forward and forward again. Ticking so fast, the sound becomes a single continuous roar. The frozen seconds in the glass tubes flare bright and then shatter, one after another. A cascade of breaking glass that runs the length of the corridor and into the hall, and up the spiral staircase, and through every room Do-yoon and No passed on their way in. Kwan's body stabilizes. That's the wrong word. It doesn't stabilize, it solidifies. The flickering stops, see-through edges fill in. The timeless entity becomes, for the first time in 472 years, a single continuous being existing in a single continuous moment. He has a thread now. Do-yoon can see it, glowing gold in the center of Kwan's chest, bright and new and fragile, a thread that wasn't there before, a thread that the offered second just wove into existence. Kwan stares down at his own chest. He stares at his own hands. He stares at the dark crack in his left palm, still there, still unhealed, but surrounded now by something it has never been surrounded by before, a present. He says Do-yoon has doomed them both. He says the bridge goes both ways, and the deep weave isn't empty, and what lives inside it has been waiting a very long time for someone to open a door. The hall shudders. Something on the other side of the bridge pushes back. Do-yoon feels it through the offered second. A pressure, a presence, vast and ancient and utterly alien, pressing against the gold light like a hand against a window. The threads in his vision twist. They bend toward the center of the hall, pulled by an invisible gravity, stretching toward the point where the second disappeared into Kwan's chest. Whatever is on the other side, it's hungry, and the door is open. Kwan raises his hands, and the clocks respond. Not spinning now, but aligning. Every hand in the hall pointing toward the same moment, synchronized for the first time in centuries. He says he needs Do-yoon's power. He says the bridge can still be closed, but only by someone who can steal time from the other side. Someone who can reach into the deep weave and pull back what's already crossing over. He says Do-yoon has to trust him. Our boy laughs. Not a bitter laugh or a defeated laugh, or the laugh of someone who's about to surrender. It's the laugh of a man who finally understands the punchline of a joke that's been running for 472 years. The joke is that Kwan spent centuries trying to force the door open. And now that it's open, he's terrified of what's on the other side. The joke is that Do-yoon spent his whole life stealing time from other people, and the one thing that actually changed everything was giving it away. The joke is that the fastest man alive just figured out that speed was never the point. He plants his feet on the black marble floor. Broken ribs, dead arm, 11 months of life left. 11 months minus 1 second now, and he can feel that second missing. Tiny hollow in his chest where a heartbeat used to be. He says Kwan is right about one thing. The bridge can be closed, but not by stealing from the other side. Stealing is what opened it. Stealing is what built the Hidden Epoch and created the pocket dimension and trapped thousands of people in time bubbles and glass tubes. Stealing is the problem, not the solution. And if Do-yoon wants to fix this, he has to stop being a thief. He steps forward. Kwan's thread pulses. The thing on the other side of the bridge presses harder, and the gold light in the hall starts to dim. Do-yoon sees the darkness bleeding through. Not shadow or void or absence, but something active, something alive, something that moves like ink through water, spreading along the threads of the weave toward the center of the hall. It touches one of the grandfather clocks. The clock stops. Not freezes, stops. The way a heart stops. The way a life stops. The way something stops when it has been erased from the timeline completely. The wood doesn't crack. The hands don't fall. The clock simply isn't there anymore, as if it never existed, and the space where it stood is smooth and empty and cold. Do-yoon moves, not with stolen time. He's got none left. Not with speed born of theft or acceleration, or any trick he's learned in the fighting pits. He moves with his own legs, his own lungs, his own heartbeat. 11 months of life burning in his chest, and he's never felt faster. Not because he's quick, because he's present. Every step is a step he's choosing. Every breath is a breath he's taking. Every second is a second he's living, fully, completely, without reaching for the next one before this one is done. The darkness reaches for him. He steps around it. He doesn't dodge. Dodging is about being somewhere else, and he's done being somewhere else. He's here. He's now. He's exactly where he needs to be, exactly when he needs to be there. And the darkness that erased a clock from existence passes through the space he occupied a half second ago and finds nothing. Because Do-yoon isn't there anymore. He's already taken the next step. Kwan watches with something approaching awe. He says Do-yoon is moving inside the weave. He says no one has ever done that. Not Kwan himself. Not the two people who achieved the sight of the weave. Not anyone in the history of the Hidden Epoch, or the Time Thieves, or the ancient scholars who first mapped the flow of years. Moving inside the weave isn't about speed or power or stolen decades. It's about being present enough to feel the river and move with it instead of against it. Do-yoon isn't fighting time. He's not stealing time. He's not manipulating time. He's just living it, 1 second after another. And the weave is carrying him exactly where he needs to go. He reaches Kwan. His left hand closes around Kwan's wrist, the left one, the one with the dark crack running through the palm. The thread in Kwan's chest flares bright, and the timeless entity flinches, expecting theft, expecting Do-yoon to try to take something that cannot be taken. But Do-yoon doesn't steal. He spends. He pushes a month of his own life into Kwan's thread, and the thread burns brighter, and the darkness recoils. Another month. The bridge trembles. Another month. The pressure on the other side eases. Just a fraction. Just enough. Kwan stares at him, ice-colored eyes wide with something that isn't fear anymore. It's recognition. Shock of a man who has spent 4 centuries trying to understand the weave and is finally seeing it work the way it was always meant to work. Do-yoon says the door needs to be closed from both sides. He says Kwan spent 400 years forcing his way out of the weave, and now something is forcing its way in. The only way to shut the door is for someone on the inside to push and someone on the outside to pull. And Do-yoon can't be the one to push because he's not strong enough. And Kwan can't be the one to pull because he's never been connected to the weave at all. But together, right now, for the first time in both their lives, they have exactly what they need. Kwan has a thread. Do-yoon has the sight. Kwan has 4 centuries of knowledge about how the weave operates. Do-yoon has the ability to spend his own life instead of stealing someone else's. Door is open. The bridge is built. And the only thing standing between this world and whatever lives in the deep weave is 2 men who've spent their entire existence fighting each other. One by taking, one by existing outside, and who are now, for the first time, fighting on the same side. Kwan hesitates. The darkness surges. Another clock vanishes. Then another. The gold light in the hall is down to a faint glow, and the threads in Do-yoon's vision are bending so far toward the center that they're starting to snap, one by one. Golden strands breaking and curling back and dissolving into nothing. Whatever is on the other side, it's almost through. Kwan looks at his own chest, at the thread that Do-yoon's offered second wove into existence. He looks at his own hands, solid now, real now, part of the flow now, and he says he doesn't know how to give anything. He says he's been taking for so long that he's forgotten what it feels like to offer. He says he's not sure he's capable of it anymore. Do-yoon tightens his grip on Kwan's wrist. He says that's the difference between them. He says the Hidden Epoch and the Time Thieves and every fighter in every pit he ever climbed out of, they all thought the same thing. That power means taking. That strength means having more than the other guy. That winning means leaving your opponent with nothing. He says that's why they'll always lose in the end. Not because someone stronger comes along and takes from them. Because the weave doesn't work that way. The river doesn't work that way. The faster you try to hoard, the faster it slips through your fingers. The only thing that actually lasts is what you give. He says Kwan wanted a willing sacrifice. Here's his chance. Not to take, not to harvest, not to force, to give. 1 second. 1 single second, offered freely, from the void back into the weave. That's all it would take to close the door. That's all it would take to push the darkness back to wherever it came from. That's all it would take to undo 472 years of theft. Kwan's hand trembles. The darkness roars. Not a sound, a pressure, a weight. A thing that pushes against Do-yoon's chest and makes his broken ribs scream and his dead arm throb and his vision blur with pain. The thread in Kwan's chest is the only bright spot left in the hall. Everything else is going dark. The clocks are almost all gone. The candles are out. The glass tubes are empty. The black marble floor is cracking, and the cracks are filling with something that isn't light and isn't shadow and isn't anything Do-yoon has ever seen before. And in the center of it all, Kwan Seong-ryul, the timeless entity, the leader of the Hidden Epoch, the man who froze an apple in a jar 400 years ago and never stopped trying to stop time, looks at our boy with something that might be hope. He asks what Do-yoon needs him to do. Our boy smiles. He says it's simple. He says the weave is a river, and the river flows in one direction. And right now, it's flowing into this hall through a door that should never have been opened. Kwan needs to find the current and push against it, not with stolen time, not with force, but with presence. The way Do-yoon moved through the darkness, the way No held the eye open in Gwanghwamun Square, 1 second at a time, 1 heartbeat, 1 breath. And while Kwan pushes, Do-yoon will pull, spending his own life, his own remaining months, his own precious limited time, to seal the bridge from this side. Kwon closes his eyes. He takes a breath. His first real breath in 472 years. His first breath as a being inside the weave instead of outside it. He says he doesn't know if he can do this. Do-yoon says it doesn't matter. He says you don't have to know. You just have to try. You just have to be here. You just have to give 1 second of your existence to something other than yourself. And if it works, great. And if it does, at least you died doing something other than taking. Kwon opens his eyes. He looks at Do-yoon, and something passes between them. Not respect, not friendship, not anything as simple as that, but recognition. The look of two men who have spent their entire lives on opposite sides of the same war and are finally, for the first time, fighting the same enemy. He says he's ready. Do-yoon lets go of Kwon's wrist and steps back. The darkness howls, the threads snap, the hall crumbles. And two men who should be enemies. One with 11 months of life left, one with his first real second in 4 centuries, turn to face the door together. The door isn't a door, it's a wound. A ragged tear in the center of the black marble floor, spilling cold that isn't temperature and dark that isn't shadow. The grandfather clocks still standing around the perimeter are down to 8, then 6, then 4, each one vanishing into nothing so cleanly that Do-yoon can feel the holes they leave in his memory. The golden threads in his vision are burning like fuses, all of them curling toward the wound, feeding it. Kwon steps forward. His thread, the one Do-yoon gave him, 3 months of a dying man's life woven into a single connection, flickers in his chest, small and gold and fragile. He raises both hands toward the wound. The cold hits him and he staggers, his skin going gray, his hair frosting over. But he plants his feet, he breathes, he pushes. For 1 heartbeat the current slows. A river of inverted time, the backflow from the void that Kwon has been feeding for 400 years, hesitates. The darkness stops spreading. Kwon is a dam made of 1 thread and 1 breath and 1 first real second, and he holds. Do-yoon feels it in his bones, the pressure in his chest. The weight of all those stolen years trying to rush home eases just enough for him to move. He circles wide around the wound, his dead right arm swinging, his broken ribs grinding, his 8 months left burning in his veins like a fuse of his own. He needs to seal the door from this side. Do-yoon's power, the theft, cannot touch the void. The void is where stolen time goes. Any theft he attempts here will just feed it. He can only give, only spend his own limited, mortal, irreplaceable seconds. He reaches into his chest, not with his hand. The thing Hayo told him about in the dojo when he said the cost of theft was the soul, and the cure was giving it back. He finds a single second, his, just his, and pulls it out. It shapes in the air in front of him like a needle, thin and bright and warm, made of his own lifespan. He presses it into the edge of the wound. The wound shrieks. The whole hall vibrates. Another clock vanishes. Kwon stumbles back, his thread dimming, the cold eating at him. He's not strong enough. He's been outside the weave too long. He's given everything he has. 1 thread, 1 breath, 1 choice. And it's not enough. He looks at Do-yoon, and his ice-colored eyes are human now, full of fear and regret, and the terrible weight of 400 years of loneliness. He says he can't hold it. He says the darkness is too strong. He says he's sorry. And then, Kwon Song-ryol, the timeless entity, does the only thing left. He turns toward the wound and falls forward. Not to push, to block. He throws his body, his newly mortal body, across the tear in the fabric of time. And the darkness pours into him instead of into the hall. He doesn't scream. His face goes white, then gray, then cracks along the same lines as the marble floor. His left hand, whole and pink just moments ago, darkens and splits. His right hand, already aging, withers to bone. His thread snaps. But he holds for 2 seconds, maybe 3. Long enough for Do-yoon to understand what he's seeing. Long enough for Do-yoon to realize that Kwon just gave his entire existence, his first real existence, to buy them a window. Do-yoon doesn't waste it. He can't steal from the void. He can't steal from Kwon. He can only use what he has. His own time, his own body, his own speed. The fastest path. Not the one with the most seconds, one that spends every second perfectly. He moves, not with stolen time, not with force, with presence. With the same thing No taught him at the waterfall. You don't fight the river, you stand in it. You let it carry you. You become part of the movement. He steps into the current of the void, the backwash of 400 years of harvested time. And he doesn't resist. He doesn't grab. He doesn't take. He just moves. His body is a blur, not because he's stealing speed, but because he's spending everything he is in each instant. One step, one heartbeat, one breath. The darkness lunges at him and he's already past it. The threads snap at his heels and he's already beyond them. The wound tries to pull him in, and he's already at its edge, moving faster than the void can think, faster than time can flow backward, faster than anything that has to steal to exist. Because he isn't stealing, he's using. Every second he has left, compressed into this single impossible moment. 8 months. 240-some days. He doesn't count them. He spends them. He burns through his own life like a star-going nova, and in that blaze of mortal, limited, rapidly disappearing time, he is the fastest thing that has ever existed. Kwon sees it. Through the cracks in his own body, through the darkness eating him alive. The oldest man in history watches a 20-something debt runner move like a god. Not because he took from anyone, but because he gave everything. And Kwon smiles. A small, broken smile. The smile of a scholar who finally found the answer he was looking for. The secret of time isn't hoarding. It's spending. It's living. Do-yoon plants his feet at the edge of the wound. Kwon's body is almost gone, dissolved into the tear. A plug of flesh and bone, and one golden thread that is about to snap. Do-yoon reaches down, not with his dead right arm, but with his left. The hand that grabbed Gang-chol in the pit, that stole from Yoon Myung-soo, that broke the crystal and shattered the guardian, and punched Kwon in the chest, and offered a second of his own life as a gift. He grabs the edge of the wound itself, not the darkness, the weave, the torn threads of time that have been bleeding into this hall for 4 centuries. He pulls, not with theft, with sacrifice. He gives the wound everything he has left, every remaining second of his 8 months, not as stolen currency, as a gift. He pushes his own lifespan into the torn weave, thread by thread, second by second, until there's nothing left but a single heartbeat. One final moment. The wound knits shut. Not slams, not seals, knits. Do-yoon watches the golden threads stitch themselves together, weaving his own time into the fabric, closing the door permanently. The darkness on the other side howls and thrashes, and then is gone. The pressure in the hall lifts. The last 2 grandfather clocks stop spinning and stand silent. The candles gutter out. And Kwon Song-ryol, what's left of him, whispers something that might be thank you and might be just a breath. And then he's gone. No dust this time. No crumbling. Just absence. The thread in his chest, the one Do-yoon gave him, floats free for a moment, gold and bright and impossibly small. And then it, too, fades. The pocket dimension starts to dissolve. The walls go transparent. The floor loses its blackness. Do-yoon is standing on nothing in a hall that no longer exists. His body a hollow shell. His time spent down to the last grain. He's got seconds, maybe less. But he's still standing. He's still him. Somewhere deep in his chest, where the power to steal lived for 8 months, there's only silence. The ability is gone. He gave it all. Every stolen second he ever held, every technique he ever learned, every instinct that screamed, take, 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 he poured it into that wound, and the wound took it. And now there's nothing left but Jang Do-yoon. 20-something. Debt runner. Mortal. He smiles. It's the same smile he had at the auction house right before he shattered the crystal. The smile of a man who just did something incredibly stupid and incredibly brave and isn't sure if he'll survive but knows it was the right thing. Floor gives way. He falls. Not through darkness, through light. Warm, golden, ordinary sunlight. The sky of the real world. He sees it rushing up at him and has just enough time to think, ah, so this is what dying feels like. Before everything goes white. He wakes up on grass. Real grass. It's damp and smells like spring. And someone is shouting in the distance. A jogger or a kid, or just some ordinary person living an ordinary life. Do-yoon blinks. The sky is blue. A single cloud drifts past, fat and lazy. He's in a park. Somewhere in Seoul, probably, judging by the sound of traffic beyond the trees. His body feels like it's been run over by a truck and then backed over for good measure. His dead right arm is still dead. His ribs still grind. His head still pounds. But he's breathing. He's alive. Barely. He looks inward, not with his eyes, with that sense Heo taught him, the one that feels time. There's no thread, no golden glow, no hunger to steal, just a quiet emptiness where the power used to be, and a small, fragile something at his core. A handful of days. A week. Maybe 2. He can't count them exactly. It's not a clock anymore. It's just the time he has left. His time. No one else's. He made peace with his mortality in the moment he pulled that wound shut. And the peace is still there, sitting in his chest like a stone worn smooth by a river. No is beside him, still unconscious. His gray leg looks worse, darker, the skin cracked. But his thread is there, dim but whole. He's alive. Do-yoon reaches over with his good hand and checks his pulse. Steady. He'll wake up eventually. Do-yoon lies back on the grass. The sun is warm on his face. The sky is blue. The world is still turning. Seconds ticking by, and he's inside it now, truly inside. Not scrambling at the edges, not stealing from the flow. He thinks about the auction house, the pit, the warehouse, the fortress. He thinks about Hyo and Master Ryu and Gangchol and Yoon Myung-soo. He thinks about the white strands spreading through his hair and the days slipping through his fingers. He thinks about the fastest path. It isn't about having more time. It never was. It's about every single second you're given, lived so completely that you don't need to steal another one. No groans. His eyes flutter open. He squints at the sky, then at Do-yoon. His voice is hoarse, cracked, but the question is clear. Did we win? Do-yoon looks at his shaking left hand. The skin is loose, spotted with age. His hair, when he touches it, is more white than black. He's got a week, maybe less. But he's here. He's alive. He's free. He's mortal. And for the first time in his life, that feels like enough. He smiles. Bigger this time. A real smile. The smile of a man who was the fastest creature on Earth for one perfect moment. Not because he stole time, but because he spent his own. He says, yeah. He says we won. And then he closes his eyes and lets the sun warm his face and doesn't steal a single second from anyone ever again. Do-yoon hears them before he sees them. 2, maybe 3 patrol cars, their wails bouncing off the high-rises around the park. No is still flat on his back, blinking at the sky like he's never seen it before. Do-yoon grabs him by the collar and hauls him up. Every broken rib screams. His dead right arm flops against his chest, useless as always. No's gray leg buckles the second he puts weight on it. The two of them stagger together like a pair of drunks leaving a bar at 4 a.m. Do-yoon spots a narrow alley on the far side of the park, half hidden behind a row of cherry trees. He drags No toward it. The sirens pull up to the main entrance just as they slip into the shadow between the buildings. Do-yoon presses his back against the cold brick and listens. Footsteps on pavement. A radio crackling. Somebody says something about a disturbance, a localized earthquake, a structural collapse in the mountains. Nobody mentions a pocket dimension. Nobody mentions a 400-year-old immortal turning to dust. The world doesn't know. The world will never know. Do-yoon waits until the footsteps fade, then waits another 30 seconds just to be sure. No leans against the opposite wall, his gray legs stretched out in front of him, his thread pulsing faintly. He asks if they're clear. Do-yoon says yeah. They move. The back streets of Seoul swallow them up. Side alleys and delivery lanes and narrow staircases between buildings. The kind of routes Do-yoon learned in his debt runner days. He doesn't think about where he's going. His feet know the way. They always have. 20 minutes later, they're in a different neighborhood entirely. Quieter. Older. The kind of place where nobody looks too hard at two men who look like they've been through hell. Do-yoon finds a public restroom in a small park. The kind with cracked tiles and a flickering fluorescent light. He pushes the door open with his shoulder and lets No slump against the sink. And then he sees himself in the mirror. He stops. He just stops. The face staring back at him is his face. Same jaw, same eyes, same scar above his left eyebrow from a fight he lost 6 years ago. But the hair is wrong. White streaks run through it like veins of silver in dark stone, spreading from the temples, working their way back, claiming territory. The skin around his eyes is looser than it should be. The lines around his mouth are deeper. He's aged. Not metaphorically, not spiritually. Actually, visibly, undeniably aged. Do-yoon lifts his left hand and touches the mirror, tracing the reflection of his own face. His fingers come away cold. No watches him from the sink, saying nothing. Do-yoon asks if this is what a week looks like. No doesn't answer. Doesn't need to. Do-yoon looks at his hand. The left one. The good one. The one that punched Kwon and offered a second, and gave 3 months and closed a door. It's shaking. Not from exhaustion, not from cold, from something older. He looks at the mirror again. 40 years old, 50 maybe. It's hard to tell. The body is still young underneath. The muscles, the bones, the reflexes. But the clock has been spent. The hourglass has been emptied. A week, maybe less. Do-yoon turns away from the mirror. He tells No they need to keep moving. They find a motel in a neighborhood that doesn't ask questions, the kind of place with a flickering neon sign and a clerk who takes cash and doesn't look up from his phone. Do-yoon pays for a room with the last of his emergency money. The room is small and clean and smells like bleach. One bed, one window, one chair. Do-yoon sits on the edge of the bed and stares at the wall. No lowers himself into the chair, his gray legs stretched out, his thread pulsing in the dim light. For a long time, neither of them speaks. Then No asks what happens now. Do-yoon doesn't answer right away. He's thinking about Hyo. He's thinking about the dojo, and the tea, and the first lesson. The one about the addiction, about the cost, about how every stolen second carves something out of you. He's thinking about the waterfall, and No standing waist-deep in freezing water, teaching him to hold a single drop of time without crushing it. He's thinking about Master Ryu's mountain, and the boulder that was a memory of a boulder, and the 1 second of his own life he spent to compress it. He's thinking about Kwon, about the offer, about the second he gave and the 3 months he pushed, and the key he made and the door he closed. He's thinking about a week, maybe less. Do-yoon says he wants to visit a grave. The cemetery is on a hill on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place where the grass is always a little too green and the silence is always a little too heavy. Heo Suk-jun's grave is a small gray stone near a cherry tree. No family name. No epitaph, just his name and 2 dates and a single line of text beneath them. He gave it back. Do-yoon stands in front of the grave for a long time. The wind moves through the cherry tree. The petals are starting to fall. Late spring. The season of endings and beginnings. Do-yoon bends down and picks up a small stone from the ground. He places it on top of the gravestone. One stone. One visitor. One student who finally understood the lesson. He says he's sorry. He says he didn't mean to take it. The last of Heo's time. The accidental theft that happened in the dojo when Heo touched him to pass on a warning. He says it's not an excuse. It's just the truth. The wind moves through the cherry tree again. Do-yoon stands there with his dead right arm strapped to his chest, and his white-streaked hair and his weak and his shaking left hand. He doesn't cry. He doesn't bow. He just stands. No waits at the edge of the cemetery, leaning on a wooden cane he picked up at a convenience store. He doesn't intrude. He knows what this is. He killed his own brother with stolen time when he was 21 years old. He knows what it means to carry a ghost. Do-yoon walks back to No after a while. He sits on the low stone wall at the edge of the cemetery, next to No, looking out at the city below. The skyline is the same as always. Glass towers and concrete blocks, and the distant curve of the Han River catching the afternoon light. The world went on. The world always goes on. Do-yoon says he has a week left, maybe less. No asks if he's scared. Do-yoon thinks about it, the pit, and Gang-chol's pipe, and the first time he felt time flow out of another person's body into his own, the warehouse, and Yoon's acceleration, and the moment he grabbed that scarred wrist and watched the man age 30 years in 3 seconds, the auction house, and Park Min-soo's time bubbles, and the women in their glass cages, the bunker and the agents, and the rupture he almost created, the waterfall, and No's voice telling him guilt is the first payment, the mountain, and Master Ryu's ink-stained hands, and the 3 trials. Gwanghwamun Square, and the frozen city, and Kang Hyun-woo eating an apple on a statue. The fortress, and the Hall of Clocks, and Kwon's ice-colored eyes opening for the first time in a century. The second he offered. The 3 months he gave. The key he made. The door he closed. A week, maybe less. Do-yoon says no. He says he's not scared. He says he spent his whole life running. From debt, from the pit, from Gold Ring, from the Hidden Epoch, from himself. And now there's nothing left to run from. The fortress is gone. The epic is gone. Kwon is gone. The door is closed. All that's left is a week of ordinary time. No stealing, no fighting, no running, just living. No asks what he's going to do with it. Do-yoon looks at the city, the glass towers, the concrete blocks, the distant river. He says he's going to use every second. He stands up. The movement makes his ribs grind, makes his dead arms swing, makes his body remind him of everything it's been through. He ignores it, turns to No and says thank you. No looks up at him. Do-yoon says No taught him the most important thing he ever learned. Not how to steal time, not how to fight, not how to win. How to be still. How to hold a single second without crushing it. How to feel the river instead of fighting it. He says that lesson is worth more than any stolen decade. He says No should carry it on. No asks what he means. Do-yoon says there are going to be others. People who wake up one day with a power they don't understand. The ability to feel time, to see threads, to steal moments. People who are scared and alone and don't know what they're becoming. People like Do-yoon was, the night Gangchul attacked him in the pit. People like No was, the day he killed his own brother. People who need someone to teach them stillness. No looks at his gray leg. He asks if Do-yoon thinks he can still teach. Do-yoon looks at No's thread, still pulsing, still connected, still alive. He says No is the only one who can. No doesn't answer. But his thread pulses once, bright and steady, and Do-yoon sees it. He smiles. It's not a big smile. It's not a triumphant smile. It's the smile of a man who has a week left and has finally figured out what to do with them. He turns and walks down the hill, away from the cemetery, away from the cherry tree, away from Hyo's grave. No watches him go. Sun is setting over Seoul, gold and orange and pink. The colors of a world that doesn't know what almost happened to it. Do-yoon reaches the bottom of the hill and keeps walking. He doesn't have a plan. He doesn't have a map. He has a weak and a dead right arm, and a shaking left hand, and a head full of white hair, and a lesson that took him 472 years of someone else's. History to learn. It's enough. It's more than enough. He walks into the city as the streetlights flicker on, one by one, and the darkness of a spring evening settles over Seoul. And somewhere behind him, on a hill with a cherry tree and a small gray stone, the wind moves through the petals. The seasons turn. The river flows, and the fastest man alive keeps walking. No hobbles back to the motel the next morning, leaning on his wooden cane. The door to the room is ajar. Inside, the bed is made, the curtains are open, and everything is exactly where they left it. Except Do-yoon is gone. He left nothing behind but a single piece of paper on the pillow. The note says he has something to do and not to wait. Do reads it 3 times, then folds it and puts it in his pocket. He checks the bathroom, the closet, even looks under the bed like an idiot. No bag, no jacket, no trail. He asks the front desk if anyone saw a man with white streaked hair and a dead arm leave early. The clerk doesn't even look up from his phone. Guess the world didn't stop just because a time thief walked out of it. No starts searching the neighborhood. He checks convenience stores, bus stops, the park where the sirens first split the night sky. His gray leg throbs with every step, but he doesn't stop. He calls Lee Jae-hyun and asks if Do-yoon contacted her. She says no, and her voice is tight with worry. She offers to put out feelers, but No tells her to stay quiet. The last thing Do-yoon needs is the remnants of the Hidden Epoch picking up his trail again. But the truth is, there's no trail at all. It's like our boy just vanished into the fabric of the city. Days pass. No goes back to the dojo, but it's empty and dusty and small. He visits Hyo's grave again, hoping maybe Do-yoon came to sit under the cherry tree one more time. Only the wind is there. He walks the back streets of the industrial district, past the warehouse where Do-yoon fought Yoon. Nothing. He starts to wonder if Do-yoon used those last a week to run someplace far away and die alone. And that thought sits in his chest like a cold stone. Then, on a gray afternoon with the kind of light that makes everything look faded, he finds it. He's sitting on a bench near the Han River, resting his leg, watching the water move. And under the bench, half hidden by dead leaves, there's a small, leather-bound notebook. It's worn, the spine cracked, the pages warped from rain and sweat and time. No picks it up and opens the cover. Inside, written in a shaky left-handed script, are Do-yoon's words. He starts reading right there on the bench, and he doesn't stop for hours. The first entry is dated the night after the pit. Do-yoon wrote about the moment he grabbed Gangchul's arm and felt time flow into him. He describes the shock of it, the nausea, the way his own cells seemed to reject the stolen years. He writes that his right shoulder was wrecked, but he couldn't stop looking at his own hands. He was terrified, but also, underneath the terror, there was something else. A hunger. He admits it plainly. He wanted to do it again. The second entry is about Hyo. Do-yoon describes the alley, the calm way Hyo talked, the sudden understanding that someone else in the world knew what he was. He writes that Hyo's face was kind, but his eyes were the eyes of a man who had seen the bottom of the well and climbed back out. And he writes, the moment Hyo gave him the first real lesson, you can only steal from someone once. Use it wisely. Page after page, theft after theft. Yoon in the warehouse, his scarred wrist, the 30 years draining out of him in seconds. Do-yoon writes that he didn't feel triumph. He felt like a thief, which of course he was. The auction house, Park Min-soo, the women trapped in bubbles of slowed time. Do-yoon wrote that breaking that crystal was the first time he felt like a real weapon. He hated how good it felt. The bunker raid, The Three Agents, the rupture that nearly swallowed him whole. No reads that entry twice because it's the first time Do-yoon mentions him by name. Do-yoon wrote that a man with a weathered face appeared out of nowhere and sealed the crack with his bare hands. And in that moment, Do-yoon realized he was just a storm of stolen moments. He had no idea what to do with all the time inside him. Then the waterfall. Do-yoon describes every failure. The 30-second collapse, the 90-second panic, the 2-minute struggle. He writes that No's voice was the only thing keeping him from drowning. He writes about the ghost of Hayo, sitting at the edge of the water, never saying a word. That was the night he broke down and told No the truth about Hayo's death. He writes that admitting it out loud felt like cutting open a wound that had been festering for weeks. And No didn't flinch. He just said, "Guilt is the first payment. The mountain, the trials, Master Ryu's ink-stained hands." Do-yoon writes that the boulder trial cost him a second of his own life, and he felt that second leave his body like a pulled thread. He writes that he finally understood the difference between stolen time and spent time. Stolen time is borrowed power. Spent time is sacrifice. And sacrifice is the only thing that's real. Square. The time storm. Kang Hyun-woo eating an apple on a statue like the whole city wasn't frozen around him. Do-yoon writes that Kang was fast, but Kang was hollow. Every second in his system was grafted and locked, a fortress built from theft. And Do-yoon beat him, not by taking, not by stealing, but by standing still and letting the river carry him. That's when he knew his power was never really about being fast. It was about being present. The fortress, the hall of clocks, Kwon. Do-yoon's writing gets shakier here, the letters jagged and uneven. He describes the moment he pushed a second from an enemy into his palm and offered it willingly. He writes that Kwon looked afraid. After 472 years of existing outside the weave, the old monster finally felt something real, and it scared him more than any weapon ever could. Do-yoon describes the darkness surging through the bridge, the clocks being erased one by one, the ancient hunger pressing against the edges of the realm. He writes about grabbing Kwon's wrist and pushing 3 months of his own life into the thread. And he writes what Kwon said next. Is this what it feels like to be part of something? Do-yoon's answer was simple. He told Kwon to stand in the river instead of fighting it. And for one heartbeat, the river stopped. The door closed. Kwon crumbled. And Do-yoon fell out of the collapsing dimension, with No beside him and sirens in the distance. The final entry is short. No turns to the last page and reads the words Do-yoon wrote on the morning he left the motel. I have learned that the fastest path is the one you live fully. Every stolen second was a debt. Every spent moment was a gift. I ran from debt my whole life. I don't want to run anymore. I have a week, maybe less. I'm going to use every second. Not stealing, not fighting, not hiding, just living. No closes the notebook and stares at the river for a long time. The sun is setting, gold and orange and pink, same as the day Do-yoon walked away from the cemetery. And No finally understands. Do-yoon didn't vanish to die alone. He vanished because he wanted to live. And he didn't want anyone chasing after him, trying to save him, trying to steal back the time he'd already given. He left the journal so someone would know, so the lesson wouldn't die with him. Months go by. No moves to a small apartment on the east side of the city, near a park with a pond and a few old trees. His leg never really heals, but the cane becomes part of him, and the thread in his chest stays steady and dim. He starts teaching informal classes at a community center. Not about time thieving, not about fighting. Just meditation. Just sitting still and feeling the present moment without trying to control it. Most of the students are retirees or stressed-out office workers. They don't know he can see the golden threads of time. They don't know he once sealed a rupture that could have erased a city block. They just know he's an old man with a calm voice and a way of making the world feel a little slower. And then one afternoon, a girl walks in. She's maybe 12, with scuffed sneakers and a backpack that's too big for her. She sits in the back of the room and doesn't talk to anyone. When No starts the breathing exercise, her eyes go wide. She looks around the room like she can see something the others can't. No notices. After the class, he asks her name. She says it's Park Soo-min, and her voice is barely a whisper. She says she came because she keeps hearing things. A ticking sound, she says. Like a clock, but there's no clock anywhere. And sometimes, when she's really quiet, she can feel the seconds moving. Not just passing, moving. No looks at her thread. It's thin and faint, barely visible, but it's there. A connection to the weave. He asks if she's ever told anyone about this. She says her parents think she's making it up. No leans on his cane and studies her face for a moment. Then he nods. He tells her to come back tomorrow. She does. And the next day, And the day after that, they sit by the pond in the park. And No teaches her the first thing he ever taught Do-yoon: not to steal, not to fight, not to see threads or manipulate time, just to sit still, just to feel a single second without crushing it. She struggles, of course. She fidgets, she asks questions, she gets frustrated when the ticking gets louder instead of softer, but she keeps coming back. And one morning, when the light is soft and the pond is still, she does it. She holds a single second. Not frozen, not slowed, just present. No sees her thread pulse once, bright and steady. He smiles. The old man leans on his cane, looks at the pond, and thinks about Do-yoon. About the pit, the waterfall, the fortress, the key. About a week, and a journal, and a promise made on a hill with a cherry tree. Then he turns to the girl. Park Soo-min is looking at her own hands like she just discovered a new color. She asks what happens next. No lowers himself onto the bench beside her, rests his cane against his knee, and whispers the words that started everything. First lesson: patience. Girl looks at him, confused but curious, her thread still glowing faintly in the morning light. And somewhere, far from that park, a man with white-streaked hair and a dead arm walks through a city that doesn't know his name, using every second of an ordinary afternoon.